a man named George Tyler who put a lot of money into Garvey's hand. He was a former investor. One day, he came to see Garvey at one of the UNIA offices. George Tyler stepped in and started shooting. So as he's in there bussing, Amy Ashwood, who was only Garvey's girlfriend at the time before he married her, jumped in front of the shooter to protect Garvey and tackled him down a flight of stairs. Garvey was hit 3 times. The next day, Garvey still went to his lecture and spoke in Philadelphia, all bandaged up and everything. The UNIA was growing at an alarming rate, and the Back to Africa movement was huge. Garvey was big time. There were over 500 chapters of the UNIA. And now here comes J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover sent all types of agents to infiltrate the UNIA.
Hoover's agents were in the audience at Carnegie Hall when Garvey bragged that the UNIA would soon be strong enough to exact its own form of justice.
When those crackers lynch a Negro below the Mason-Dixon line, since it is not safe to lynch a white man in any part of America, we shall press the button and lynch him in Africa.
The agent reported that Garvey's address was met with great applause and much excitement.
Garvey felt like black folks needed their own ships. There was the White Star Line, the Irish had the Green Star Line, so Garvey created the Black Star Line. Not only just to help with transportation, but to also sell goods. The SS Yarmouth was the first ship purchased, and Garvey renamed the ship the Frederick Douglass.
Welcome to another episode of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? It's a great day to join us on the Nick and CJ Show. Welcome, my friends. A lot to discuss. We had a lot of stories, and I'm have a lot of reporting I'm gonna do this weekend. We're gonna have Dan Cohen on tomorrow. I'm working on 4 p.m. Eastern time. We got to nail down a time for him. I'm also gonna have Q back on, QF Niamine and Carlos Za. He was on the Anti-Imperialist Summit. They're gonna join me on Tuesday. Then Arkansas on Monday. So we got a lot of stuff. We got a ton of bangers coming up. And the thing is, I still got this fat ass guest list. People are like, Nick, why you haven't had this person? I'm like, bro, I'm behind. But that shows out that we have a thriving community, and we appreciate you guys. Like this, we can't be denied, man. We can't be denied any longer. And we're gonna talk about a conversation we had with Bree. Big shout out to Bree, because not many people wanted to have a conversation with us. Not a lot of people from the professional managerial class is willing to even acknowledge that we exist. So, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well, CJ. We can kind of start talking about this because. Just like Bree does in most interviews, I think her intention was to be the devil's advocate. So her more boutique audience can understand our position. So, I talked to Bree. We had a lot of great conversations. I know where she stands. I think she was asking us questions. So, almost in the point of view of her more moderate fans, right? You know what I'm saying, CJ? But I won't pass it to you, and then we can. If you have like
a deposition, she's not answering. She's asking the questions for somebody else to say. Listen to what these people are saying. But no,
when we was doing it at least. But go ahead, CJ.
No, I love the dynamic the three of us gave there because it was 3 different levels. It was my level, the anger, the righteous rage, and then it was your level, the poignant points with attitude, and then there's Sabby that brings in the professional surgically professionally brings in and speaks very yes. So I love how it's not like all of us are on the same sort of coming at it the same way. I think you even speak about it. You say I have a sort of a different tone because you were kind of
we talk about this all the time. I like that. I like the fact that we all come at things with different energies. We may agree on some things. Like you guys probably don't even know. Like there's like levels where we like agree on stuff, the tones that we take. And I always say, I think this is what makes our network successful. The goal of this network to show that there's not a monolith on the Black left. So you see that conversation with all four of us, even us who mostly agree. You can see the differences between me, CJ, Savvy, and then Brianna Joy Gray, the most well-known Black left media voice. And this hasn't been exposed until RBN. Like, and then we bring other Black leftist voice on, like Olayemi. Like she was fired this week, boy. Right? And then people see all these different opinions that we bring in. Like we're bringing two Black, Kamu from Black Gender, Black
Margaret Kimberly, David Ben Norton. Yeah.
That's why I'm super excited where we at, because this is exactly like when we talk shit, like when we first started, exactly what I said we wanted to do, right? Like I want to show people that there's not a monolith on Black left opinions. There are people that think there's a monolith on Black opinions in general. Like people will say, "Oh, Black people like Joe Biden, Black people like the Democratic Party," and every time people say that, I cringe. Like that's not true.
That's not true.
That's not
what they should say, and I'll bring the graphic back up. What they should say is the very few Black people, the very minority of Black people that do participate in the project, that majority, that's the better way of acknowledging it. But I do want to just shout this out, Nick, because this was the topic, because we didn't know what time Bree was going to release it. We knew it was today, but I wanted to have a segment. And it turns out we had a lot to talk about. So let me just say, Jamal Bowman called out in public. There's a video of him being called out about his vote of funding the imperialist core. Gray Zone's Wikipedia page is being targeted. And then, of course, the viral video of Joe Biden saying, "Where's Jackie?" And then there's also a video of a labor member, international labor member, Angelo Sanchez was suspended for calling out NATO, and that's on video. And then the story that we keep having to roll over to the next episode, Chicago Water. So this will be what we try to tackle tomorrow, and plus the guest that Nick announced. I just wanted to shout that out.
I don't know when I'm gonna fit it in. Maybe either today or something. Maybe tomorrow. But I definitely want to talk about the Italian Prime Minister. We didn't get a chance to do that yesterday. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people that said Italy elected a fascist prime minister. She's a neoliberal, guys.
I actually did a segment on it.
Go ahead.
I actually did a segment on it.
I almost missed it.
Oh, I haven't posted it. I was supposed to post it yesterday, but it would be to do a good follow up, because what I covered was I want to chime in. I covered a world socialist website, and they look at her as a proto-fascist, which is basically like she made, like a proto, like she is hawkening back.
DJ, you want to know funny?
Whatever the guy's name, I forget. Mussolini's type style of speaking, type style of like ideology. That's what they were talking about. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I can't wait to do my breakdown. I might either do it later this stream or maybe next stream, because there are a lot of people that are like, "Oh, the Italy elect a fascist because she's part of the far right party," and they say, "Oh, well, she praised Mussolini," which is yikes, by the way. But our presidents praise the founding fathers. That is not a good argument to use,
right?
The Democrats.
So you're saying that it goes. This is just a regular run-of-the-mill neoliberal, and maybe fascist is too harsh of a word. Like now, she is like just the same as everybody else that's fascist. Like she's not any uniquely different.
Yeah, if you're one of the people, and I'm very sympathetic to this idea that if you say, "Oh, neoliberalism leads to fascism, neoliberalism enables fascism," hey, I concede. I'm not fighting you on that. But people are like, "Oh, she's a fascist." I'm like, bro, she's a standard right-wing European politician. She's implemented austerity politics, cut for the poor. She's pro-NATO. She sent us a tweet like, "Yeah, Zelensky, we got your back, bro. We got your back, bro." I'm like, this is your populist? I saw people saying, "Oh, she's not fascist. She's a right-wing populist." They're just
wait. This is the first time this is the first time.
CJ, you know I got
the argument. So the argument is she's not a fascist. She's a right-wing populist. Is that what the argument is trying to?
The Tucker Carlson lovers, like those people, like, yo, the liberal media calling her a fascist, but she's actually a right-wing populist. And there are a lot of people I see agree with that, because the COVID-19 culture war gave so many people brain rot. So people, like, if someone got that easy to get issue right, People pretend that they are some sort of champion of the working class.
Yeah.
So people look at Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis got to issue his mandate right, which once again, not hard to do. And then people take that example and they're like, oh, well, he fought against the COVID mob. He must be for the workers. This is the brain dead logic we see now. That was the same thing what happened to the Italian prime minister. She was apparently very critical of the lockdowns and the right wing and the neoliberal mandates. So then people took that and it was like, oh, she must be a friend of the workers. And then she had this cringe speech. I don't give him too much away. I need to save this. But she gave this cringe speech where she was like, I can't even identify as an Italian woman. I can't even identify as a Christian. You mean that thing you just did? and then she was like, well, with the establishment, they want to turn you to consumer puppets. And then people saw that, and capitalists, because they have no real coherent ideology, they heard her say that, and then they was like, oh my God, she's speaking the truth. And like, bro, what did her policy lead to? Her policy leads to consumer slaves, you dumbass.
Yeah. And one of the first things she did, now I'll save it to go into detail, but one of the first things she did since she's been elected was cut something for the poor. That was the very first thing she did. Yeah, so we'll get to that because I think we could probably get to that in this stream. Maybe at the end we can.
I may save it to after the first story. I know you guys want to see the interview. But
we're here for the interview. So any good comments, Nick? Let me check the likes and then we'll do a chat check and let's get right into the topic. So if you see any good comments, Nick, toss those up there. I'm gonna refresh and see what do our like count look like, and making sure everything on the back end. Okay, so we're at 106 likes. We have 226 people. Maybe we can push that to 150 likes. Let's check out your chat. Looks like we got super chat at least one, I think. So please like the stream. And also, if you want to get notifications of streams like this, streams like the ones tomorrow, or any other stream, join our Substack and you'll be put on our mailing list for when we notify you when we go live or new content is uploaded. So if you join our Substack, you could do that. Go ahead, Nick.
Whenever we read, do you have the clip?
So let me just inform the audience. So the clip you saw is not the whole, like what she broadcast on YouTube, and the full interview is on her Patreon. Now I happen to be a member of her Patreon, so we're gonna listen. It's actually in podcast form, it's not visual. So we're gonna listen to the whole thing, and once we get to the part where it's the visual part, we can flip to the clip so we can have a visual part. But it's basically the beginning and the end is cut out, and what you see is like on YouTube is the chunk in the middle.
Part. It's a good part. But the whole
it's a chunk in the middle.
You guys know, like, especially if you watch the whole thing, even in that clip that was on Bad Faith, I'm just chilling. I'm like, damn, dude, this is a fire ass conversation. I didn't even have to get involved. It was just Savvy, CJ, and Bree. I was almost like a spectator, and I chimed in every once in a while whenever there was a need for foreign policy. But for the most part, I was just enjoying the conversation because once again, I was just enjoying the difference of tactic and opinions that comes on the Black left that a lot of people didn't never acknowledge and gonna be exposed to for the very first time. Oh yeah. One more thing. I definitely gonna do this soon. I forgot to plug this. This. So I was on the Hill, and let's just say it was a fun conversation I had with Robbie. And on the Rising, they put out this response video with and the guy who is quote unquote taking me on and debunking me. It's some pro-war think tank motherfucker. Some people send me this. Some person send me this like, bro, you see this dude who was going after you on the Hill because apparently my the message I brought was so devastating to the right-wing audience. They was like, send someone in. Someone crack the record. Don't bring Nick back though. Someone cracked the record, and they brought this dude who worked for a pro-war think tank, and 2 years ago he called for the United States to invade Venezuela, and then that dude went on the Hill Rising to explain to people that U.S. sanctions had nothing to do with Venezuela's economic collapse.
It's laughable. It's laughable. It's like it's an SNL sketch.
We're for sure not gonna do this stream. I may need some time, but I'm definitely gonna go through that segment. Maybe Friday or Saturday. I'm doing a Saturday show too this week, so I can't guarantee when, but definitely it's gonna be tomorrow or Saturday. I'm gonna do a response video because I was just loving like, dude, I forced them to do another segment just so they can respond to what I did, what I said. Let me read the last two super chats. Sorry, CJ, then we get back to the story.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead.
This guy saw two super chats that came in real quick. Thank you for the 999. Thank you, Christina, for the solidarity and support. Call you live today. Hope you enjoyed the live show. We have a very proletariat network, so most of our views come like way after. Some people able to catch on their lunch break sometimes, maybe during their commute. I know, cause I talk to a lot of people in my community. And then when they get home, a lot of people watch it. So a lot of times I'm like, bro, I don't even care about live viewers because I know you guys are gonna get home, probably watch it later. It's all good. So anyway, I'm glad you caught the live stream. I appreciate you guys. There's one more super chat song, so I'll make sure I didn't miss it.
I see a red I see a red one, 99 cents. I think you have.
Maybe I read that one earlier. Anyway, I think I did read that one earlier. All right. Go ahead, CJ. Sorry, you can continue.
Yeah, no, I just want to kind of just toss some comments up. RBN on Bad Faith. Good job taking Crying Davis Rhoda down. Can't wait to see the whole podcast. I don't know if you're going to see it because, like I said, it's in podcast form. So what we're going to be listening to, the parts that was cut out in YouTube is audio, because on Patreon it's just I guess it's just audio, will not be co-opted, and that's pretty much a guarantee for me. Okay, so I think that's enough shouting out, everybody. Welcome. If I miss you, my apologies, but we're already 17 minutes into it and we haven't even got to it. So
let's go. I'm sorry, I just 22.9. We said the goal to hit 30K. I said this a while ago. I'm about to take yours off. I set this up a few weeks ago. I didn't know we could hit it. I was saying it was going to be a crazy goal. But after the Hill appearance, after Bad Faith,
that's when the thing started. Actually, for me, when I noticed,
we get close. It's going to be a nobody. CJ.
When is the numbers began with the Jimmy Dore, Nina Turner thing. That's when kind of things, because we were already kind of overnight being successful or being moderately good at what we've been trying to do. But it felt like after that is when more and more other people started finding out who is this RBN, and then the rising appearance just kind of put Nitro in it.
Someone told me like that appearance was important because I debated Destiny, but like who gives a fuck about who's Destiny? So he don't use his real name, but that was important because you see me on the mainstream media debunking mainstream talking points, and that's when you're like, okay, even the mainstream can't handle this either. Now they got a choice. Either continue to platform me or ignore me, and it'll be clear either way, right? But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, so we're gonna start with the audio because it plays the part before the actual video on YouTube. So I'm gonna play the part before that. And hang on a second, everybody. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Let me share. And so we're going to be listening probably to the first maybe 15 minutes of it, 10 minutes of it. And then it goes to the video. Then I can bring up the video and we can start from there. And then at the end, we'll go back to the audio for the ending. So that's kind of how it's going to go. All right. So let's listen. Ooh, let me turn that down.
All right, I'm super excited to be joined today on Bad Faith Podcast proper for the first time by almost all of the RBN crew. Welcome to you all.
It's good to be here, Bree.
So if you guys aren't already listening to Revolutionary Blackout Network, that's a mistake. You guys have heard JB on this program back when we did our dating episode last year, which I'm now reminded that we absolutely have to do a follow-up to. But as a real proper introduction for those of you who don't know, those listeners who don't know who you are or how you came to the space, I wondered if you could go around and briefly introduce yourselves, starting with you, Sabrina.
I'm Sabrina Salvati. I have a channel called Sabby Sabs. I started that channel over a year ago, interviewing progressive candidates. That's actually how I started. And then also interviewing activists as well. Some of the people that I interviewed, CJ was one of them, Nick was one of them, and also Rome. And then later on, they asked me if I was interested in joining RBN. So that's how I got there.
Okay, terrific. And you also joined me on The Hills Rising last week for the first time, when what I hope is not the last time. And
say that again, because it was, I heard you, but I want to make sure people, the audience
I'm
heard
saying
you.
what a decision that was, because
yeah,
I told you one of the reasons why I started RBN, because I saw all these great Black media voices. I watched CJ show, The Popular's Voice, Sabby, that went Unapologetic had his show too, Nico. And I was like, bro, why are we not getting no fucking play? I guess we got to platform ourselves. And we had a conversation with Sabby. I knew Sabby for a while when she first got started. No one really knew who she was. And then I was like, yeah, we definitely gotta have her part of this. And goddamn, what a great decision. Like in hindsight, right? But go ahead, CJ.
absolutely. All right, so let's get right back to the episode.
And I got to tell you, Sabby, people in the studio, there's, a mixed political bunch behind the scenes, and people across the political spectrum really responded well to your communication style and what it is you had to say about ASD. So people should definitely check that out as well. Nick, tell us a little about yourself.
I'm Nick. I consider myself to be a citizen journalist. I got started off working on the Bernie campaign. I was canvassing, traveling multiple states, including I stayed in South Carolina for 5 weeks, talking to the most conservative people in the country about left politics, about socialism. And I literally got my platform at first because I would just share the stories that the mainstream media would ignore. We would hear a lot of falsehoods, for example, that the Black community are extremely conservative. So I told people I wanted to debunk that in real time. I went down to South Carolina and talked to some of the most conservative people in the country and gave them a voice on my old channel. And RBN got started because I noticed there was this lack in this media space with Black leftist voices, with anyone who didn't repeat the mainstream narrative. So that's why I call Sabrina, I call CJ, Rome, and JB, because I wanted to provide an alternate voice. That's kind of how RBN got started. So
yeah, that's incredibly relatable. I mean, people who know me know that I started becoming a journalist and started writing back in 2017, almost explicitly and expressly because of the Bernie made me white kind of vibes that were pervading the media sphere. And I don't have to tell anybody here how exhausting that can be. CJ, you joined me most recently on, I thought was a really excellent episode of The Debrief last week. I always really appreciate your pushback. How did you come to the space?
Yeah, and just to your point, I always feel bad that every time I'm on your show, I am the one that's pushing back so hard. But what happened to me, the pandemic. So my background is like film production. So I'm on set, have to shut it down. And then I think it's 2 weeks because that's what they're saying in the news. But it ends up being this long thing. And I'm feeling confined to my home. And I just say, what can I do? How can I contribute? And this is when I first get on Twitter. So I had Twitter before. It just was like for business. I was a club promoter in my younger years. So I reopened that and just kind of switched it to my own name, found this political space, found Nick. He was like one of the first people found, Ryan Knight, and so on. And then it just kind of where I just felt like I needed to express my views. I'm feeling bottled up. So I just started my own show. It's called The Populist Voice. And that's how Rome found me. Hooked up with Rome. He didn't know that I had already been talking to Nick about doing stuff, something like this, like a joint sort of station. And then we all just kind of came together, me, Nick, and Rome. We identified people that we thought would be in the same space, have the same energy. Sabby was one of them. JB was one of them. That's kind of how it began, and it spun into what it is today.
One of the things I really appreciate about all of you and your channel is the extent to which you found each other in the space and opted to work together instead of being kind of competitive, because the space can be a little bit like crabs in the barrel. And, there are channels that seem to get a certain degree of oomph out of just having online antagonisms with their leftists. And I think it's very helpful and constructive to disagree. I've been really interested to watch this back and forth that's been happening around criminal justice issues that's, lately over the past couple of weeks. And I think that people should go on each other's shows and talk about these things, absolutely. But you guys seem to have recognized that your powers combined give you something different, at least, than just operating as solo actors. And it's been a real joy and pleasure to watch. This is partly why I wanted to have you guys on here, because I want to ask you in this space what your perception is when you look at the main bulk of popular kind of left media outlets, from TYT to Breaking Points to Jimmy Dore to, the whole gamut of people that are out there. What do you wish there were more of? And what do you think people are getting wrong specifically, perhaps starting with the way that you guys interrogate electoralism? I'll start with you, Sabby.
I think when I was first introduced to this space, it was TYT, which is interesting. I don't watch TYT anymore, but TYT was really the one that kind of put me onto progressive policies and issues. From there, I found Secular Talk and then David Pakman at one point as well. And it just led me to other people, Convo Couch, etc. That was back when the algorithm was different. If I watched independent media, I was recommended another independent media channel. That doesn't happen as much anymore. So that's where I started watching like left independent media. And I did notice that it was mainly heavily male, mainly white men. When I found someone like Kim Iverson, that was another person at that time that was, pushing Bernie Sanders movement. I was like, there.
And we must say, or I must say at this point, that is still one of the biggest problems still. It's still heavily male. That is still a problem. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, and that's why it's great to see Savvy Channel explode, because when we talk about why we formed RBN, the lack of Black women in the space is a giant reason. There's Bree, and then there's Bree, and then there's Bree before RBN. That's literally it. Even with people you disagree with, all Black dudes. So that's why we had Finney, and then Finney had to move on to do other more real life stuff. We had Josano that we had on, and now you see Savvy, because I tried, and this is not an easy space for Black women to be in, and that's the thing you hear from everyone. That's the reason why some Black women are not on the channel anymore. It's a very hard space. And that's something I wanted to see, at least wanted to help in any way possible. Don't get it twisted. Savvy, she did everything she did on her own, because she's amazing. But in any way I could help that, I wanted to accomplish. But go ahead, CJ.
Absolutely. All right. So let's get back into the conversation. Savvy was speaking.
There's a female who has her own show. I thought she was doing a great job. But I will say one thing I did notice that I didn't find out till later on is that I felt like there weren't enough working class people in this space, enough Black people in this space. And I felt like that voice is needed, because I was kind of surprised when I found out where a lot of people came from. And my upbringing was a little bit different. So I came from a middle class family. And then when the housing crisis happened in 2008, I pretty much lost everything. So I had to start all over from the bottom. And what I commonly heard was a lot of upper elite coastals who were speaking for working class people that had never been working class. And I just thought it was important for people to hear from those people who have those struggles.
So to that end specifically, it does feel like there's this gap that's in part motivated by class and how folks in this kind of political commentariat sphere approach candidates in terms of their viability, whether or not we should invest much energy into what happens in general elections or midterm elections at all. And my observation is that there's one camp that kind of says, we've tried it the old way. We've tried to work an inside game to the extent that an inside-outside game were possible. The people that are on the inside now aren't.
Have they really tried an inside game? Can you call what they're doing really executing an inside game? I don't what is the execution? What is the
version of the inside outside game is where the inside yells at the outside and demand them to follow their lead, and they will never listen to you. No, we're not going to listen to you. Outside, you listen to us. You got suggestions? You got a march for Medicare for all you're doing? We don't give a fuck. You want to do forced to vote? We don't give a fuck. You guys don't like the fact that we funding Ukraine more? We don't give a fuck. We're gonna do whatever we want. And you're gonna follow our lead and shut the fuck up. That's their version of the inside-outside game. You guys realize that, right? And the people who are down for it just so happen to align with inside. But if you have any criticism, like, nope, you're red brown, you're a fucking, you're a right-wing infiltrator, like, we know because RBN been on the receiving end of these smears, right? So I just want to let you know that's how the Justice Democrats, that's how Bernie Sanders, that's how the boutique left, that's how they view their role. The outside, the activists, fall in line or shut the fuck up. Go ahead, CJ.
All right, so let's continue.
Behaving in the adversarial ways that they were supposed to, and which was the reason why they were sent to Congress in the first place. And so now we're going to focus our efforts outside, even if that means that there are negative electoral consequences for Democrats. There are people who I think are more disproportionately working class who seem to be saying, I'm willing to take the hit because my life has been bad enough under the status quo. Whereas it's people who are more affluent who tend to say, well, what will happen if Trump or someone who's like Trump gets elected for another cycle? We can't let that happen to the most vulnerable amongst us. And it's an interesting divide as I've observed.
Think about that point, Nick. The people who is receiving the brunt of this hellhole late stage capitalism are the ones that's willing to take the greatest risk in order to reap the better benefit. The ones who have healthcare, the ones who are in the professional managerial class are the ones that's like, I'm not willing to take that risk because they're not willing to take their status. They're not willing to take their income, all of these things for risk. People that are at the bottom, they have nothing. What do they have to lose? A 401k? They don't have one. Healthcare? They don't have that. Like what are like savings? They don't have that. Like what are they? So they're like, no, let's go. And that's what I feel, Nick. RBN is here to say, no, we're not going to keep grandfathering in the poor and the working class as that's just part of the regular tapestry of this, this art piece called America.
And they benefited from a left media space that was echo chamber of bourgeoisie white dudes where they had no one that can challenge them on this.
Right.
That's why these people are desperate not to mention RBN, don't platform RBN, because we can't have an opposing opinion that gets large that they had to compete against. They used to being the white saviors. We give you directions, you follow them, no question asked, and you're gonna listen to us because you're a dumb leftist. You are a worker. I am a smart. I had a degree. Okay, I went to college. Right, I went for 6 years and I studied. I studied history. I got a political science degree. So you will listen to me. That's what they when I told you guys when I did my initial breakdown. When I got on the Hill. When I announced it, there were so many boutique leftists that was like, who is this blackie? Who is this motherfucker? Who is this? You guys are fighting social MMA. What is this qualification? What is this qualification? Because I'm a college dropout. And if you're a college dropout, if you didn't go through the boutique managerial class training, you are forever out of the club. And I'm telling you as someone who's part of this space, and we on RBN, we're gonna tell you how we see it. And this is what the reality. You can see these people that tweet and stuff like this. Who is this guy? What is qualifications? Who gives a fuck? Anyone who has a platform. This is the decolonized mind thinking that you guys will have to understand. Anyone who can share a story, whether that be on your Facebook, any platform where someone can receive your message, is a citizen journalist and has a voice worthy of respect.
Yes.
This stance disgusts them. Because they're elitists. You have to go through certain hoops, right?
You see it all the time, almost at everything. Just watch a DSA meeting. just remember that clip. I think who brought that up? Oh, the interview we had with Catherine Liu, and she was like, "Did you ever see that clip of DSA? How they kept stopping the process from going? Remember that viral clip, Nick? Do you know what I'm talking about or no?"
Which one?
The viral clip of DSA where like, can you stop screaming? Can you stop screaming?
I played it.
I'm sensory. Yeah, that thing. It's like, wow.
There's so many clips where people just be in DSA meetings like, bro, what the fuck is this shit, bro? I'm gonna record and post this shit online. You gotta see this shit. This is not what fucking being a communist is about. But that's the CIA left that have been infiltrated to put a suitable left in place that make the neoliberal easy to it give the neoliberal capitalists an easier job fending off a weak left that always follow CIA talking points. One last thing when we get back to the video. Imagine my conversation on the Hill, but not me, but with a standard social dem, with a standard Bernie style progressive. They would have been like, yeah, Robbie, I can see your point that Venezuela is an authoritarian country. Yeah, Robbie, you're right. You're right. Nicolas Maduro's a thug. And you make great points, Robbie. I concede. Because that's their ideology. They're like, we believe in Medicare for all. We believe in progressive ideology. But we're going to believe everything the CIA says about their enemies. We're going to believe everything they say about China. Everything they say about the DPRK. We're going to push for every single regime change war like Vox does. Like TYT did when they support regime change in Syria. But they still cheer the death of Gaddafi. They cheer Juan Guaido. AOC follows Juan Guaido on Twitter, defers to fucking insane imperialists on that issue. I went on a rant. We can get back to the video.
No, but that rant is making me realize, man, just how right RBN is right about this.
Yeah,
how many signs do we have to see that this shit is done? Like, this is a rotten corpse that you're propping up like a weekend at Bernie's. And it's terrible. Let's get back. Let's try to get through the more so we can get to the visual part of this, which is about 5 or 6 more minutes of it, the audio only.
Observed it. Nick, does that seem to be basically what you've observed as well?
Yeah, there's a giant divide on the left in the post-Bernie Sanders movement. I think the Bernie Sanders movement, we saw the giant rallies. I think there was a miscommunication that we was on the same page. There are a lot of people who are very sympathetic to the Democratic Party and a lot of capitalist ideas, while our side, I have no tolerance for anyone who is enabling the power structure that empowers imperialism, that empower our police state. So when Bernie Sanders said he wanted to wage a political revolution, that was fraud. That is, he committed fraud on the people by taking the money, by saying he wanted to do something that he did not do. I am very sympathetic to the inside-outside game strategy because I was part of the Bernie Sanders movement. But for what I've seen, I'm a very scientifically minded person. I am willing to try something, and if it fails, I want to adjust and try something new. The inside-outside game strategy was rejected by the inside, not the outside. I want to make that clear. So we work with the Bernie Sanders.
This is such a great point. Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of people get this motherfucking shit twisted. A lot of people are like, oh my God, you guys giving up on the justice. No, these motherfuckers gave up on us a long time ago. But go ahead, CJ. I know you want to make a point.
I was stopping there for you to chime in. I was just going to ask you that, or just point out that this is such a great point. The inside-outside game, like we're saying, we're done with trying to convince people to let us play, to join a club. Like the inside-outside game was shut down by the people on the inside.
Yeah, they should be.
That's who shut this down.
Think about it, guys. Think about how they get this wrong. And people in TYT, the majority report, humans, all these people get this shit wrong on purpose whenever they talk shit about third-party advocates and people who bash the squad and criticize Bernie. Bro, I was part of the Bernie movement. Nigga, the outside game was there for the inside game to the point, and it should be the exact opposite. It should be the inside game begging the outside game, like, hey, bro, what do you want to do, man? Let's get something together, bro. I want to boost my political profile. I want to do something for the workers. Can you guys help me out? I'm gonna get something done. It's hard to get legislation passed. I got a lot of these corrupt motherfuckers next to me, so I need some people power. We may fail, but I need you guys to hit the streets with me, and I'm gonna give a speech. Like, there's so many things they could do, but they're like, nah, shut the fuck up. We got a plan. Just trust our plan. And anyone who questions us is part of the Red Brown Alliance, and they only question us because they want the left to fail. It's a comical position. But go ahead, CJ.
And they don't want to, and they never can explain detail what the plan is. They just go, do you never heard of strategy? You ever heard of strategy? He'd a turtle, you gonna be all right.
They don't care about strategy. They think just supporting good policy all that matter. But then when we bring a strategy, they're like, nigga, what the fuck? I don't give a fuck about that shit, nigga. You see, I tweeted, I said I support Medicare for all. What else do you want from me, okay? Marching? Nigga, I got gators on. You want me to march? All right, I'm having fun with this one. Go ahead, CJ.
That's so
But for
funny.
real, that's how they
so
literally
funny.
respond to people like me. Like, this is how I see it. It's nothing but comical. The shit I see ever since I got in the space. That's why I can't help but laugh. Like, I'm gonna do a lot of serious stories this weekend, a lot of depressing stories.
Yeah.
But whenever I talk about this shit, it just made me laugh.
Yeah, this
that
is
people
to
fall
the
for this
point
shit.
of this is to the point of like I don't know what era, whatever whoever's watching, but if you're an older era Benny Hill, this is like on some Benny Hill type shit. If you're younger, maybe SNL. If you're younger than that, Mad TV. This is on some like Comedy Central. I'm writing sort of material. You couldn't write this. That
Really
you
can.
just think about the progressive strategy. It's so ridiculous that you have progressive values that you have to hide in secret and pretend you don't have in order to please the imperialists you're trying to join. So you have to throw Palestinians under the bus. You have to throw Black indigenous under the bus with the funding of the police state. You see? But let's get back to the we always get on tangents, but good tangents. But let's get back.
Sanders' campaign. We work and help get these people elected by even donating our money to them. But we can't even get them to show up to our Medicare for All rallies. We got anti-war rallies that can't even show up. So a lot of people claim that we're nihilists because we gave up on the idea that we can take over the Democratic Party and implement an inside-outside game. But that inside-outside game was abandoned by the progressive base. So now we need to try something else, which I think we should have did from day one. That's why I was a Joe Stein voter. We need an outside, hostile approach where we can get a large amount of people on our side and enact concessions from the two-party duopoly. And anything else outside of that is actually counterproductive to the working class movement because you're giving these imperialist capitalists a mandate to continue their policies by voting for them.
Speak to the mandate part. I know you explained it, but explain to people why it's a mandate when you're just saying, "Oh, I'm picking the lesser two." No, that's not what history is going to say, and that's not what they're going to say in their speeches and State of the Union. But can you explain, Nick? Go ahead.
These people, man, they purposely leave this part off. Whenever people talk about voting, Sam Cedar does this bit he thinks it's funny all the time. Where he's like, "Yo, people think voting is your expression. That you're gonna tell the man how you feel." And he said, "No, voting, what us smart people does, unlike you dumb emotional workers, what we do is we use our intellect and we choose who we want to fight." And they think that's a good strategy. I'm gonna ask you guys this: who does that serve? So when we do that, when we line up en masse, we give the ruling class a mandate. So what the ruling class does, they see like 80, 90% Black people vote for Democrats most of the time. So then Black people go ask Democrats like, "Yo, can we have a Black agenda, please?" And they said, "Nigga, you vote for us anyway. We don't want to give you shit. Why should we give you shit when you guys vote for us?" But think about who does not vote for Democrats, guys? Suburban white women. Despite the narrative that women hated Trump, which a lot of them did, Black and brown, right? White women voted for Trump the majority of the time, 2 elections in a row. You guys know that? They blame us, third-party voters, but white women voted against Hillary Clinton. You guys know that? Something that the mainstream media never brings up.
That's because they don't expect them to. You see how that they don't expect, but they expect Black and brown people who are being oppressed and repressed by the conditions through capitalism, through the policies and laws. Those people are supposed to just do it anyway because you're just a peasant. Go ahead.
So it's really fucked up. So then what they do? They compete for the white suburban vote because the white suburban vote is up in the air. Trump won the white woman vote by 55%. He won it, but that's a gainable, that's a winnable demographic for Democrats if they do what? If they started funding the police state more. If they appeal to Zionism, if they appeal to capitalists by giving corporate bailouts and having trickle-down economic policies like Nancy Pelosi. There's a reason why Nancy Pelosi wins like 70% of the vote every single time because she lives in San Francisco with shit-libs that understand their class. So I explain to people, stop giving these Democrats the benefit of the doubt. They know their class. So they are fighting for the white women vote. Why? Because Black people gave it away. Now, last example I make that shows you guys, if you guys still not understanding what I'm saying.
That's such an important
One
point.
last example. Jen Psaki actually said the quiet part out loud, where she was asked a question. This is when Biden first started increasing the police budgets. She was asked, and I covered this at the time on RBN. I had to dig to find the clip. But she was like, remember the George Floyd protest while he was elected, and you say you show support to the George Floyd movement? How are you going to take George Floyd's name and then put more money in policing? Which is a great question, and that should be asked to Biden administration every day. That is the only time I've ever seen that question asked. You want to know how they respond to that question, CJ? They said, yeah, we know that there was massive protests against the police, but Biden ran on funding the police more, and people voted for him. So he followed through on his campaign promise. They just straight up said, he said, and remember, in front of millions of people on the debate stage, he said Donald Trump was weak on law and order. And he said that he's going to fund the police more while Donald Trump wanted to defund the police. So he was open about it. Meanwhile, you got a bunch of Black Lives Matter liberal clowns who was endorsing this guy, who was openly saying he's going to fund the police more. Then he got in office, and then he did it. And now they're telling black people, look at all these articles. We covered a few. But they're like, oh, my God, I can't believe Biden betrayed us. Motherfucker, he told you.
That's not a betrayal when he tells you up front.
Sorry, CJ. Last things. Ice Cube said essentially what I was saying, but he had a bigger platform. I was saying the same thing as Ice Cube. Ice Cube says, show me a black agenda or we should not vote for you guys. And then, remember, liberals ripped him to shreds for that. Liberals ripped me to shreds for saying I'm not voting for Jim Crow Joe. Because we was right. Now look at the unhinged Biden administration. He's doing this because you guys gave him a mandate. But go ahead, CJ. That was a long explanation, but I wanted to properly.
But that was perfect. That's what they're going to take it as. They're not going to go, oh, let's show some humbleness and understand that most people didn't vote for us because they wanted us. It was just lesser of two evil. They're going to go, no, we said this is what we wanted to do. They voted for us. We won. That's the mandate. So that's how your lesser or two evil vote is turned into a mandate to do something that you don't necessarily agree with. So that is a very, very good point. But let's get back to the video so we can get to the visual part. So
I agree. And part of the reason why is because I feel like in some ways, many of us have been more patient than perhaps was warranted with the people who are saying that they're really being adversarial on the inside, who say they're holding up their end of the inside game. And so far as I feel like I've had people on the show, and I know I saw that you recently did an interview with Rokana as well, Sabby, that was great. And, you have these people on the shows, you ask them what their plan is, you ask them what they plan to do to hold folks accountable. You have people who have been working within the Democratic Party for decades, like Jim Zogby, who I recently interviewed, who's on the Democratic National Committee, who speaks very poignantly to all of the ways the Democratic Party is screwing progressives over the years. Most recently, their unwillingness to even have a debate on whether or not to get dark money out of politics. You see them working harder to defeat progressives than they ever do Republicans. And now, most recently, and I saw you covering this, I believe, Sadie, that you covered the interview of Kamala Harris being asked about the Democratic Party strategy to literally boost MAGA Republicans in all of these races. And basically being asked whether this undermines the credibility of a Democratic Party that says they're so deeply invested in democracy and saving democracy, and this idea that the MAGA Republicanism is the greatest threat to democracy. If that's the case, why is it that you're doing all of this funding?
I'm not going to tell people how to run their campaigns. I ran in terms of statewide office.
Would you have done this? Would you have done this? Is this in your? Is this something you'd be comfortable?
I'm not going to tell people how to run their campaigns, Chuck. I ran for statewide for Attorney General re-election, won both times, for Senate, won that race. And I know that it is best to let a candidate, along with their advisors, let them make the decision based on what they believe is in the best interest of their state.
I mean, CJ, what do you make of that choice?
So what you're speaking to is a huge.
Just quick pause.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kamala said the Democratic Party is just okay with candidates do wherever they want as long as they win. Do you guys think that would be the position if you had a Democratic candidate that was strongly calling out Israel, that was calling out Ukraine aid fund?
Nope.
Hell nah. I just want to put that out. I'll be real quick. Go ahead. You can go back to the video.
No, that's a great point, though. Huge blind spot, and it's one of the blind spots that part of the left, speaking to your earlier point about why we felt the need that RBN was needed in this space is because there is several huge blind spots, and that's specifically in left media. That's specifically because most of left media is white and male. Because of those blind spots, and because there is also a class divide, which happens to be the people who are of left media in these spaces with the largest audiences, they happen to be in the upper class. So spending time hitting their head against this democratic machine is something almost like a lifestyle for them. It's something they do on the weekends, something they do. It's not really going to affect their lives whether legislation is passed or not. And this, right. So, and this is a great point. And because you have to think when they're recommending, when they're talking and giving their perspectives on things and analyzing it, are they analyzing it from what perspective? You're assuming it's from a left perspective, but it's actually from their class perspective first. This is why you never hear them say, they'll talk about general strike in terms of the abstract, not general strike in the terms of, let me bring on some union leaders, let me bring on some this to talk about how do we get one done. That's not what they do, because that's going to eventually impact how they're living, because this streaming stuff is not how we live. Like, this is not how I pay my bills, is this, because we don't make enough money to pay bills from this. So this is more of a passion. So I feel like we are more just saying how we feel and expressing what the working class want.
Yeah, we made like no money on this, like the first
year.
We
don't like care at all.
We don't have no idea about that. Like the whole first year, we had making no money. Well, go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, I mean, and if you and the thing is, we paid out money. We don't calculate it up, but when you're paying for different things, you're paying for a program so that you can edit, but you're not bringing in money. That's money. That's an expense that you have, exactly. And so on with the streaming services and all that stuff. So that is a great point. But let's get back to the video. This is the problem, and this is one of the blind spots that the left media sphere that we have. I feel like RBN has been a shock to that system, because we're saying, no, none of these things. The police state is important. The people at the very, very bottom are important too. The most poor are important too. And we have to come from that perspective, not from the perspective that these people who are already poor, well, they're already poor, so let's just kind of grandfather them in as being part of the tapestry of still being poor in this, this American portrait. So to speak to your second point, this is the thing that I target the most, and that is trying to break this low intellect, like you're not really using your critical thinking skills to think about this strategy of remaining with this strategy. It's sort of like you're throwing that out because you know what's at the other option that you really don't want to. And this is a point, Nick. We can't be the only ones that see this nonsense. There's people, these liberals see the hypocrisy. They know it's there. But the other option is now we have to fight red and blue. And I'd much rather fight one of those. Yes. And that's really the option that they're talking about, because fighting red and blue is David and the Goliath sort of fight. But a red versus blue fight is like it's like the same thing fighting the same thing. So to that point,
that's a great point. That's a great point. We can go back to the video though.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the class divide. Want to do, and this is also from that perspective of class. Who is saying the things that the left should be doing? The people who are well off. Why are they saying force the vote wasn't a big deal? Because we don't talk about it in that terms, but force the vote was a class divide. Bree, you just happen to be a class traitor and was with the workers, with the proletariat.
Well, see, I mean, that's interesting. Force the vote was interesting because there were some people who I do think get criticized.
So this is where now it begins the video, because that's the first line of the video. So let me switch screens, and now I'm going to share the actual video content that you may have caught on YouTube. Some of you haven't, and this will be the first time you're watching it here too. So this is the line where she begins. And
force the vote was interesting because there were some people who I do think get criticized and I'm not pining on the value of that criticism in this moment, but by certain parts of the left.
Hang on one second. I do want to clear this up. It looks a little blurry to me, so I don't want to have any issues after I'm 20 minutes into it. So let me just clear it up before we start here. And then, like I said, we will.
Force the Vote was interesting because
we will have to go back to the audio to end the episode. So let's continue.
There were some people who I do think get criticized, and I'm not pining on the value of that criticism in this moment, but by certain parts of the left for being kind of elite and out of touch, who did support Force the Vote. So, Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball and Cornel West, and there were a lot of people who have sometimes had opinions that I know get critiqued in this space, who did, at least at that moment, see the strategic value of doing something like Force the Vote. And I wonder what you make of that, CJ.
And that is, and this also speaks to another blind spot of the left. It's their ability to pick and choose when they want to be actually for the policy and when they want to just kind of, what's the word? Where you're pretending as if you're doing it. So in this case, we'll force the vote. Now, we had some on this, this class divide, some who I refer to as leftists, reformists, and others who use the term boutique. Now, one person can cause you not to support something you say is the number one priority of the left, and that is healthcare. What does that say about your conviction? What does that say to your audience? And why is your audience listening to you if they can be derailed by a person, by one single person? It was the absurdity of that. And remember, Bree, Force the Vote was sort of my first in this space, because I've only been in this space maybe coming up on 2 years. It was the first time in this space where I'm seeing the absurdity on people who are calling them the left. Now, I see it in their critiques, in their lack of critiques with the Israel-Palestine, but that's sort of baked in. This healthcare thing, I thought, was one of the things that reformists and revolutionists like this is a no-brainer, right? So this was one of the first things that kind of opened my eye to the ridiculousness of what I call reformists.
Can I ask something, Bree?
Please.
Regarding the class divide on Force the Vote? Because there are a lot of people that is in the lower class who need healthcare who wasn't that fond of Jimmy Dore, but they did not allow that to distract them from the issue. I noticed a lot of people who did not need healthcare was allowing their support to be decided whether they had a beef with a podcaster or not. That is stuff that only people who are privileged had time to worry about. And I cannot emphasize again, I know people who did not like Jimmy, but they supported Force the Vote because they needed healthcare. That is the position you take if you are in a position where you have to fight for it, instead of being in a comfortable position in an air-conditioned studio where you're more worried about taking the upper hand on your beef instead of fighting for the issues that we find important, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sympathetic to that argument, but I also know that there are people who are going to say, well, if sometimes the people in the air-conditioned studio were on the right side of the thing, and if there's a such thing as a class traitor, even if you shouldn't maybe trust them as much as you would someone who has similar class identity, and if there were working class people who were against Force the Vote, I mean, that was also true. Then is that the kind of, should that be the full extent of the?
Besides Medicare for all and $15 minimum wage, what has the boutique left and reformists gotten right? You tell me. And the $15 minimum wage is debatable because it shouldn't even be 15 anymore.
Congrats on getting the issue money. That's a 15-year-old policy. We'll go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, because she was saying how sometimes those people in those air conditioned get things right, but what do they get right? Health, Medicare for all, and some of them say $15 minimum wage. What else do they get right? That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to point out, Nick, what are this white left infrastructure? What are they getting right?
Like CJ,
you can't say it's the progressive strategy. You can't say that because that's completely wrong. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, you guys don't understand. I be rooting for these motherfuckers, low key. Like, I'll give you guys an example. When the Ukraine war popped off, I was like, please get this right. Please, for the love of God, I would love, even for the people I do not like, to get this issue right. I bring up an example that she brought, Kyle Kalinske, who got forced to vote right. Kyle Kalinske said the Ukraine war is exactly like the United States invading Iraq.
It's almost like he doesn't read anything. It's almost like he just comes up and just flips a coin and says, "This is what I'm gonna say." And to that point, Nick, Kyle is the one of the 3 people where I literally don't understand his appeal, and I don't get why people watch him. Kyle is one of them. I don't get it. So this, like, I really don't get it. But we can get back to the video.
Because Kyle, I remember he got Russiagate right. He was really good on like the war on terror, and I'm trying to be very nice here because I kind of ripped him because that's what he said on Ukraine. So dumb. He said Russia literally engaged in an operation to fight an Azov battalion on their border, which is now a war against NATO, by the way. It's a complete war against the Western NATO. That's similar to the United States launching a completely unjustified war, blaming Iraq for 9/11, crossing an entire ocean. Ukraine is the neighbor of Russia. They crossed an entire fucking ocean to invade a country on false pretenses. Even if you say Putin is wrong, that comparison is so bad. And that's why it's a shame. I told you guys I'll be rooting for these people because I'm like, please, I may have disagreement with you guys on important strategy issues, but please get Ukraine right. And then they got it wrong, as predicted. Every single one of the people we're talking about here that we criticize, they get this shit wrong. And I'm like, guys, we don't want to be for these motherfuckers. if only you got this shit right, I could be like, man,
please get it right.
I ripped Noam Chomsky to shreds because he endorsed Joe Biden and his insane COVID mandate takes. But then, remember, he had to take his Ukraine takes has been base as fuck, and you can look at our video gallery. I've done multiple segments praising Noam Chomsky for that. So I'm begging, and not us, we begging you guys to be better, but you guys just don't do it.
They don't, and it's because they're trying. You got to understand, this is the petty bourgeois. They're trying to please the actual bourgeois and say, please let me into this club. That's literally what they're doing. And to that point, this part here, Dora was obviously a scapegoat for the anti-F force to vote. CIA so this is now. Let's think about. I'm going to bring in an example here. Let's think about what is the messaging on white left media now, and TYT is an example, about police state. Oh, we're doing too much. Abolish. Listen to what they're doing. Is it cover for the Joe Biden administration? Because I think if it was a Republican in office, that's when they go farther left in their rhetoric, and then they bring it back when it comes to the Democratic Party. So to this point, Nick, what if they were just scapegoating Jimmy because they knew they couldn't really support that because the Democratic Party doesn't want this is not the time. You get what I'm saying? So that could be it too.
I'm not going to do a whole segment on this, but I think this is very relevant considering what we're talking about. I'm going to pull the classic up, the classic CIA divisive techniques that I have shared many times. Just the person tagged me. It's always easy to find it because people always tag me in it. Because I made the viral tweet like 2 years ago, bring this up, dug it up from the grave. Like, guys, how do you guys not see the boutique left follow all this stuff? For example, look at number 4.
Wait, tell us what this is first so that people clearly understand what this is.
This is the CIA handbook they use to infiltrate left-wing movements. The CIA used this to infiltrate labor and the people who are fighting for labor rights. During the big fight for labor rights in the United States, but they have since adopted this to infiltrate DSA. The Black Panthers was infiltrated as well. Like, they're the left-wing group. They would try to infiltrate it if it's successful. That is literally what the intelligence agencies do, and they are quite literally very open about this. We know this because of the Freedom of Information Act. This was publicly available information. You can find this anywhere. And it's just one of many of these manuals that have been leaked of the techniques they will use to infiltrate not only just American movements, but they do this to infiltrate movements in the global South and have informants for them as well. But anyway, there's a entire list here. This one is cropped out to bring up one very relevant to what in our time right now. Look at number 4. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible. So, CJ, remember during Force to Vote when everyone was bringing up the merits of this idea? What was Sam Cedar and Jane Geer and these deeply unserious clowns doing? Jimmy Dore! Following number 4, 2AT, guys. Bring up
irrelevant issues
as much as possible. And look at number 7. Advocate caution. Oh my God, we do Force to Vote. We're gonna get a Republican Speaker of the House. What if this happened? What if that happened? What if American for All become unpopular for some reason after Force to Vote? You guys see how number 4 and number 7? I saw this all the time. That's why I tweeted out. I was like, guys, how are you not seeing this?
Yeah, they use this tactic. In particular, the professional managerial class uses that number 4 a lot. So, but let's get back to the video. Let's listen more to the interview. A little more analysis here.
Of the analysis, even if it's a meaningful part of the analysis. So I'm thinking, for example, of a conversation that I had recently with Crystal Ball on this show, where I think we had a good faith disagreement about what approach was most likely to result in benefits. And I think that from the perspective of someone like Crystal, that she believes that the likelihood of there being any real progress, and that's a very nebulous and kind of ill-defined thing, real progress, which I think is part of the problem. But, you know, from her perspective, it seemed to me to be the case that if it's very unlikely that you're going to get, say, Medicare for all from a third-party run, then even if the odds of mounting an insurgent candidacy within the Democratic Party are very slim, that is the more practical thing to do and the better use of someone's time. And from my perspective, I think that question is very much up in the air, given how we have had it demonstrated to us again and again and again exactly how tough it is to do things on the inside and how slim the odds are from doing it on the inside as well. So it's not diminishing how difficult an outside run is or the likelihood of like traditional success from an outside run, but it's to say, well, if they've now shown us over the course of the last decades that an inside run is next to impossible, then why are you still committed to an inside approach? And I think it's the perspective of the difference is, from my perspective, do you think, or how much do you think that we've exhausted the ability to do what we can do within the Democratic Party? And while I think there's probably a good faith disagreement on that, I am increasingly firm on the belief that there's not much to be done there. I wonder what you make of that, Sabby. Do you think that?
Nick, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed over the last year, Bree has gone closer and closer to this thinking that she's had over the last maybe 2 years, maybe year and a half, that she's gotten closer and closer to less believing in this strategy, this inside-outside game, more critiquing it. Just think back to the Seize the House. Just think back, even then, she's even come further since that time, and that wasn't even that long ago. So something's happening. Either it's the conditions or it's our voices also being part of the discussion and having a different opinion is helpful.
She listens to us all the time. So, and this, I just hope that we can have the influence and bring talking points out there, because I will see her debate a lot of the reformists, and that was something that we were talking about when we had a conversation on her show on Call-In, when she was talking to this guy. I don't remember his name. I apologize, but he was like, we need to take over the Democratic Party, and the talking points that she was using, like exactly on the point in the kind of shit we was advocating for, which I'm just glad that message is now being spread for. It's just good to see. But go ahead, CJ.
Absolutely. Let's listen to some more or watch a little more.
I think that there's like a good faith reading here, or is it completely about kind of people's relative comfort levels in class?
think part of it is about comfort level in class. But one thing I do want to point out in reference to that Justice Democrat strategy, and CJ actually reminded me of this on a stream that he did a while back. Part of that strategy was to also start a third party movement. In fact, the Humanist Report covered this. That piece was never implemented. So when we had these progressive candidates get into DC and they're supposed to fight for us and they're not fighting for or fighting back against legislation where they had leverage, there was no backup plan. There was nothing else to fall back on. There was no third party movement that was started that was supposed to go along with this strategy. So now it was just like you had to run cover for these progressive politicians, try to make excuses for them and try to convince viewers why you still need to support that strategy, even though people could see what was happening and what was going on. And this is where I think a lot of us at RBN, we point to a general strike, because this is an example that shows that the inside game is not working. So what do? You go back to the outside game. If you want to look at something like a general strike, we just saw the railroad workers. They were threatening to strike. Look how quickly Joe Biden jumped in to respond and act, because that affects the supply chain. So if you have the railroad workers and if you have the truckers, and if you can have the port workers, which are also under duress right now on the West Coast, you get all three of those on board, that's your general strike. The quickest and fastest way to do it is through transportation, shutting down transportation services because it affects the supply chain. So that's something that we feel should be heavily pushed, and that's an outside game. And we know that the response would be faster because we just saw Joe Biden respond quickly to the railroad workers. But you need to have a list of demands. So if you look at some of those policies that Bernie Sanders had, I think all of those should be included in the demands, not just higher pay, but give everybody health care, give everybody paid child care, give people paid sick leave, which one of the things that they were fighting for was just having paid sick leave. Those kind of things need to be added as a list of demands. And I think that can work faster. So all of us are frustrated about climate change. That's not going to work quickly through the Democratic Party. They'll pass like weak climate legislation, and at the same time, they're still doing fracking. They're still getting around that bill that was just passed. I just saw this with the state of Maryland. They're already working with oil refineries in West Virginia, but that's Joe Manchin's territory. So of course, he's going to go along with that. So I think for people who want to just do that inside strategy, I think they're going to have to focus on getting money out of politics. As long as the corporate money is there, it's going to be corrupt and they're going to serve corporate interests, not the interests of the people. The other avenue they could do is they need to direct their focus more on local politics. Some of these policies that Bernie Sanders had on his platform, we've already implemented here in states like Massachusetts or in CJ's state like California. We already have paid family leave in Massachusetts for everybody. We passed the right for 15 years ago, and they've already passed the workers' rights in the sense that you don't have to disclose your salary when you're looking for a job. So a lot more can be done on the local level electorally than on the national level. So if you want to fight for those issues on the national level, I think the best way to do it is a general strike. And I think you need to focus more so on third party and independent candidates to really disrupt that duopoly.
That's such a great point that Sabrina laid out about having a different strategy. And that's the clip that she used. So what I'm doing, 918. Somebody said, Nick, that she dropped the full episode. So I'm just seeing if that is the case or if
does she usually do that?
Else. I don't think she usually does that. Yeah, I don't see it here. So maybe they mean on some other place. But yeah, okay. So I just wanted to check to make sure if I didn't have to go back to that other thing. All right, so we can go back. I know where we left off, so we can go back to one more.
Force of it was interesting because there were some people who.
Hang on, 918 is where we left off. All right, so we will start there.
Dependent candidates to really disrupt that duopoly.
Can I jump in there? When we're saying, because this is a key part in understanding that this conversation, when we're talking about third party and the duopoly, we have to get out of the framing of third party is the same as it's going to be the same way. We have to get out of this thinking that moving to a third party means the next election we're winning. That is not the strategy of a third party, or it should not be. You have to build the third party, like what Savvy was referring to here, building it locally, going for local races, student councils, going for city councils. I said student council, but that's not what I meant. It's a slow build. Now think of this. For those that, in the professional managerial class, like who you had on your show a couple of days ago, David Sirota is another one who helped you. We have them on video saying, I've been at this task for decades. So if I were to say, what is the difference in trying to work within the system, a party that does not want you, dark money is an example, does not want you for 20 or 30 years, than you building up the Green Party for 20, 30 years? Why is the Green Party's expectation the next election? But the Democratic expectation is decades. The framing is already off. You see what I'm saying? So when the comparison is not this party who's been, literally the Democratic Party is one of two parties that's been around for 200 years. I think the Tories, the other party, there's no other party more. So this party that's 200 years old, what are you going to do, Green Party, in 4 years? It's such a ridiculous framing of the idea of switching to a third party. That's not at all the comparison. So this is a point I never thought of until that time when I was listening. I think it was something you said or Sabby said that even made that click to me, that this framing is so off. Why is the expectation is so ridiculous? It'll be like saying a child that's 3 could go and pass a test of a person who's 86 and lives 86 years. It's like it's so such absurd. A different thing. Go ahead.
Because it's so absurd, because they say, oh well, we can't support third parties because third parties will never win. Well, if we support them, if we start supporting them and start the movement building process, maybe you'll be wrong.
Right.
So and you make this point, and I'm not gonna go too long because you make the point in the video. The people will openly admit, man, you guys, you young kids, you don't know, man. I've been in the game for 20 years. They're like, you fucking cocky brat. You don't understand. I was in town halls yelling at Democrats in the 90s. I'm like, okay, so you've been doing this for decades, but what to show for it? But the party literally shifted to the right. They took Bill Clinton, who was already the farthest right Democrat we've seen economically, speaking especially, and then they just doubled down on that. So all that decades of fighting in the Democratic Party that you guys always brag about, it led to literally the point we are at, which you should not be proud of. But go ahead, CJ. And you
what can we get? Just think about it. Just think about, go back to 95. Let's say everybody decided to exit the party and we wasn't winning elections. What have we gotten? Like staying in the Democratic Party, we get nothing. Moving to the Green Party, we get nothing from the Democratic Party either. Like either way, we're not receiving results. So why is it okay to remain with the party that doesn't even have our policy and we're not getting results, instead of moving to a party that has our policy at least? You get what I'm saying? And building that up. That is just, for these people to have all of these degrees, no one ever addresses that part. No one ever has a good answer for that. Go ahead.
I would say no critical thinking. It's just elite academia, which doesn't teach you critical thinking. So go ahead.
Absolutely not. So we have to build a third party. I would say the Kashama Sawant style of politics, if you want to participate in the duopoly while doing the general strike stuff that Sabby spoke about, should be the way Kashama Sawant says, which is basically, of course, it can't be the Democratic Party. That is a strategic flaw, that you're teaming up with people who are working against the working class and you're representing the working class. That is a strategic flaw. That's like teaming up that's like a communist teaming up with a capitalist to bring socialism. That doesn't make any sense. So we have these very weird, contradictory partnerships that's never going to materialize anything for the people at the very, very bottom. It's always going to stop at a certain level. Always. And then the response I've heard to that, and I'm going to pass it back to you. The response I've heard to that is, well, Obama, Medicare or Medicaid expansion, really? You're talking about the thing that requires you to be in a perpetual state of poverty? You're talking about that thing? Like that's the thing we're putting on the mantle as the great thing that we can accomplish through electoralism. And who are we forgetting again? The people have to remain in poverty.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point. You have people, and I respect their work.
Yeah, her acoustics is way better than ours. You can hear it because right when she speaks, you hear that hissing. Because in my where I am, my air conditioning on.
I'm gonna get a new mic soon.
Yeah, but that's
don't make a lot of money, man.
But she has a producer. She has a producer, and he had us record our audio separate for this very reason.
Thank God you guys have better. I was like, bro,
right? So he has better audio. So that's great. So that's something.
I'm gonna try to get a new mic soon, guys, because to fix my old mic does not really work that well, and I have a lot of glitches with it. So I'm gonna try to get a new mic. So, but anyway, that's just because I hear you guys.
Yeah,
it's hard out here, guys. Hard. But go ahead.
Yeah, we see the comments. Y'all need a new mic. The audio, like we see, like, hey, we just ain't got the money yet.
Work in the organizing space, which I'm not in, an enormous deal. But there are these quips like no shortcuts, right? There are these terms that always are applied to folks who are looking for alternatives to working within the Democratic Party that presumes that they're looking for an easy way out, or they're not willing to work, or that they're sitting this out, or that they're throwing up their hands and giving up any responsibility for any change making in the world, when it's quite the opposite. And the gap between the standards applied to the Democratic Party in terms of how much needs to be achieved and in what time frame, and what is expected of alternative strategies that are just getting off the ground is huge and speaks volumes. But I want to come back to you for a second, Nick, because Sabby, I think, very importantly raised this issue of the general strike and how strike actions, generally speaking, should be putting more pressure and have been demonstrated to put more pressure even in this last week or so on the administration and get more of a response from the administration than any number of protests, including millions of people in the streets in the summer of 2020 who basically were told, you ain't black if you don't vote for Biden.
I'm going to pause it here. I realize I have not made a call to like this video. We're at 371 likes with 470 people. That's 100 viewer difference. So maybe let's see if we can get 50 more people to like the stream. Let's get over 400. And that should bring in a few more people. Maybe we can hit 500 people watching. That'll bring a lot of comments to the live chat. And then also, if you're not part of our Substack, if you join our Substack, you get notifications for streams like this, where we send it directly to your email. You can watch the video directly from your email. So it's very convenient. So you can join our Substack, and we send those out every time we do a live stream or upload a clip. We try to do that. And then if you're new, subscribe. We're trying to hit 30,000 subscribers. If you're just brand new watching us, subscribe, give us a shot. Check out our content. We try to upload or at least do a live stream every single day. I know we do one 5 days a week. The weekend is, or Saturdays is the one day that sometimes you may not get something if we're just, we're proletariat, working class kind of people. So we just can't get anybody available to do something on that day. So, all right, so let's get back to the video and continue.
Biden, and also, we saw in the leaked Biden call that fall with all of the black leaders in the country, where he basically said, it's not your turn to shine. We're not going to think about you. We're talking about you right now. And I wonder what you make of the pushback that you get when you even bring up a conversation. If you just say the word general strike, I know that you experienced a great deal of pushback when you did the General Strike Summit. Was that last year or earlier this year? And I've noticed it too, because I just recently reached out to a bunch of labor reporters to talk about the rail strike. And if I mention even to, can you talk about the history of the general strike on the episode in my request, I've gotten already some pushback saying, I just don't think it's appropriate to talk about it right now. So what do you make of that, Nick?
So there are people who need to reconcile with the fact that no matter who's in charge, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in charge, the quality of life for the workers and household income has fallen, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat is in charge, because both parties are waging a class war on behalf of their donors. And if you vote for that, if you give them credibility, you're giving them a mandate to continue. You guys have attempted this strategy of taking over the Democratic Party for years now, and I have seen nothing but the Democratic Party shifted to the right. So what we need is a hostile working class movement that will bring the ruling class to their knees. Like Sabby mentioned, look how the panic that came from the Biden administration and the ruling class because of the railroad strike. Imagine if we had critical infrastructure and industry that banded together. For example, on the Jones Strike Summit, we had the Kellogg Strike Union leader on the panel, and he had a great answer when we asked him. We said, will you be willing to work with other industries and team up for a general strike? And he kind of gave me a reaction that he would never even ask that question before. And his answer was, of course, yes. Of course, yes, because this is the leverage we need. And you can build this labor movement through a third-party apparatus. So you can have third parties, which I believe should be engaging in mutual aid, showing up for the community. Because like I said, you guys got to reconcile with the fact that workers are being left behind. A lot of people just want to advocate just for the working class, but you guys are ignoring the poor. What about the people who are homeless? What are the people who can't pay their rent? So you have to show up, engage in mutual aid, communicate with people, and like CJ said, build this third.
Let me just bring up the point, because you said about the homeless or the unhoused. That's a topic that leftists are not on the same page, because there's some in the professional managerial class who think that there's a problem. Yes. Like Anna Kasparia thinks that that's a problem, and she just wants the homeless people to get the fuck out of her city. Like, it has nothing to do with putting them in homes at all. Go ahead.
You want to know why no one cares about the issue? Because the homeless have no money to donate. So the Justice Democrats not getting homeless money. The same way Justice Democrats not getting it. Republicans not get it. That's why homeless people are not represented. And most homeless people don't vote. There's like a lot of hoops that you gotta go through to be a registered voter as a homeless person. I think there's a conversation to be said that as designed, they gotta go through an extra hoop because they don't have a registered address. And there's some homeless people that go through that hoop. But if you're homeless, bro, are you really gonna do that to vote? No. So they generally don't vote, and they generally have no money to give. So people literally don't give a fuck. RBN, we cover homeless issues all the time. All the time. I'm confident to say no one else in left media covers more than me. Ever since I started my platform, I'll cover the issue of homeless, the homeless rate. Remember, we covered the homeless rates rising, the homeless protest. I'm covering Casey tenants and the homeless problem in Kansas City. And this is something that people who are engaged in electoral politics, since they know it's not a solution that's going to be fixed, they just generally avoid it. And guess what? Black people are 13% of the population. And despite that, we are 40% of the homeless population.
Right.
And this is what people do not ever connect these issues. The issue of homelessness is a black issue. Why you guys think the black network covers it more than other people do? Why you guys think the white boutique left are actually anti-homeless?
Right. It's so funny. It's so funny. Where's that comment? This one here. I still love Bree. I don't give a flying F that she is a PMC Puritan, but I want to take Bree to a nice sit-down restaurant. And I like PMCs. There's going to be class traders with us who aren't in our class, but I don't feel like Bree tries to act like she's leading the voice. Yeah, she's in the back saying, tell me what you think is right. So she, to me, is playing the position that a PMC is supposed to play, is to bring in the voices that are being impacted and let them speak. And then she just kind of just brings up the topic of a discussion, but it's still them kind of crafting the framing.
Yeah, so I see a few comments, and I need you guys to understand what Bree is doing. And she does this all the time on her show. She's playing the counter argument because we are going on her platform that she admits is more boutique, more electorally minded. So she's framing the argument from their perspective so they can understand where we're coming from. It's a technique, and this is what many people don't understand. Like, that's what I'm doing with Jackson, while I'm asking him tough questions so you guys can see his position and you guys take the stance there. That's what Bree is doing here. And she will openly admit that she's part of professional managerial class. She even laughed when CJ called her that once because she knows it. But everyone,
no, she said it in the stream. I think she said it in the stream with Catherine Liu, because Catherine Liu said both of us are in the PMC, and she's like, yeah, I know. I say this all the time. Like Breeze said it on camera.
So having revolutionary discipline is us telling, when me and Rome, we tell you guys, everyone has a role in this movement. Not everyone's going to be able to do the insane shit that Rome does. That is incredible for the proletariat. Not everyone's in that position. Then there's some people who become successful lawyers, might have came from money, but if they want to help and become a class trader, we got to accept their role in doing that. And me personally, this is why we had a conversation with Bree, and I think she's a good faith actor. I see what she's doing in her lane as someone who's accepted among the professional managerial class as the black voice. I told you guys before, if we need a black woman called Breonna Joy Gray, she's the person who speaks on black left issues, right? So she's doing her. That's my perspective. So I feel like some people misread that when they're like, "Oh man, I don't know why Bree's still weak on." I'm like, no, she's playing a role. She voted for Joe Stein in 2016. But anyway, CJ, we can get back to the video. I just want you gotta understand that some people are gonna play their roles different. Like, we are the hotheads. RBN here, we all working class. We have no political connection, so we're not worried about burning bridges here. And not everyone's gonna have that role. If you can do what you can to advocate our movement and not advocate for a two-party duopoly for one, which Bree is not doing, I think you're doing your role. I think that's just me. Not everyone can be that hardcore revolutionary, right? But anyway, go ahead, CJ.
I think, and I said this many times, to me, her being a Green Party voter is what allows her to be in
bro. If you vote for Biden, guys, I wouldn't. Guys,
it wouldn't be. The fact that she's a Green Party voter and she's been one for a while, that is what makes her be able to have that sort of I don't even know, honorary sort of like, hey, you're a class traitor and you're welcome here in revolutionary camps. But let's get back to the video.
Third party through labor action, through mutual aid.
I'm gonna rewind a little bit the beginning of what you started talking here in that last point
on the panel, and he had a great answer when we asked him. We said, will you be willing to work with other industries and team up for a general strike? And he kind of gave me a reaction that he would never even ask that question before. And his answer was, of course, yes. Of course, yes, because this is the leverage we need. And you can build this labor movement through a third-party apparatus. So you can have third parties, which I believe should be engaging in mutual aid, showing up for the community. Because like I said, you guys got to reconcile with the fact that workers are being left behind. A lot of people just want to advocate just for the working class, but you guys are ignoring the poor. What about the people who are homeless? What are the people who can't pay their rent? So you have to show up, engage in mutual aid, communicate with people, and like CJ said, build this third party through labor action, through mutual aid, which is a hostile outside movement. And through that, and I wish a lot of communicators would explain this part as well, 5%, that third party gets federal funding. Imagine you have a mutual aid party that is getting federal funding. 15%, we had a debate stage. We talked about this before, Bree. What percentage of the population do you need to affect change?
Some say 3%.
You say 3%. That's a great number. Imagine, Bree, if we have 15%. Not only are we at the debate stage, we have a mutual aid society that is taking care of the workers that are left behind by the two.
So I don't know if you heard it or if you took it. So to me, those are two different things. And that's because I kind of saw Bree's face, and I think she was referring to 3% of the population to do a general strike. And then you were talking about the threshold for...
Yeah, and I think those are related too, though.
But they are related, but I'm just making sure the audience knows that there were two different things that we were talking about there. But go ahead, Nick, if you were going to add to that.
And those are related because there were a lot of people who advocate against third parties don't tell you. They say you waste your vote by voting for third party. And every time I see someone say that, they always leave out the fact that third parties get federal funding at 5%. And they leave out that if a third party gets 15%, then they have to get on the debate stage. And think about what Bridget said. If you get 3% of the population, you need to start a general strike. If we have a third party that was built, the foundations was built on mutual aid and labor organizing, we are already winning.
Right.
Because then they would have to put us on the debate stage. And let's say most people would say, well, they would never do that. Okay, fine. Let's say they deny us our spot on the debate stage with us having 15% support. That alone will make headlines. Why are they so afraid to talk to you? Then people start asking, guys, once you get that 15%, they are fucked. They are fucked. Not only with the amount of resources, people power you have that can shut shit down, but then they will have to give you a seat at the table, or they look nefarious, which only grows your support. And that is what happened historically with movement building revolutions. After a while, people are like, why are you ignoring them? That's suspicious. Now I'm questioning. Right? So that's the strategy. They never ever talk about that. But go ahead, CJ. We can continue.
That's a great point.
The two-party duopoly, now they are engaged. When I engage in mutual aid in Kansas City, I got a new diaper run. I'm about to do a new mutual aid event. And I already have people reaching out saying, oh my God, I want to help. This guy just reached out to me today and said he want to help buy some diapers. Over the last few years, Bree, we sent millions of dollars to the Bernie Sanders campaign. For what? For what? Imagine if this money in infrastructure was used to build a third party. These are things that the David Sirota, the boutique managerial class, they don't even explain to people. Let's get to 5%. 5%, we got a massive mutual aid third party. 15%, we won. At that point, it's game over. We got a massive amount of people in the streets. We forcing them to either put us on a debate stage or they got to make headlines by kicking us out. I'm good either way. Either way is good for us. So I'll pass it to you guys because I want you guys to understand that is a theory of change they are not representing by having and engaging with drone strikes. I know that was the main question. Engaging with drone strikes with combination of third party plus mutual aid.
I went on a rant. I never forgot. Oh yeah, she asked about general strikes, but I brought that up because I wanted to show you guys the entire picture. Because I want to show you guys how third parties relate to a general strike. Because if you had that 5%, that 15%, not only are you engaged in mutual aid, you guys are organizing general strikes, right? With that popular support, and then the workers, the people you need, they see the third party movement, wherever you want to call it. Let's say you got this third party. They say, oh man, this third party is helping us labor organize. That's how you build your party. Not running campaign ads, not following the same strategy as the two-party duopoly. Our strategy is completely different. You guys understand? We build our support by showing up to communities with mutual aid. Then they say, oh, it was this party, this third party that fed me. And then the labor organizer, is this third party that showed up. Meanwhile, you got Joe Biden that undermining labor organizers by giving Amazon contracts. He's undermining the railroad strike workers by working to end the strike. So the choice would be clear. And once again, CJ, we don't know how long, whether this is a 4-year process, an 8-year process. We are helping people by mutual aid right now.
Right.
While building the worker labor movement, while building third-party apparatus. They don't even understand this is a short-term strategy,
right?
Short-term gain and long-term gain. But
that's
CJ.
No, that is such a great point. So when they say in 4 years, if you have a viable, it's not about being viable in 4 years. It's about meeting material needs immediately. Yes. That is the part that is immediate. Yes. That is the part that's irregardless of your 2 or 4 year cycle that you're on. It's meeting the needs, and that's how you build the community trust. Then from the activism, or maybe, I think from the activism, this was what Ron was talking about. You have a candidate come out of the activism, and that's the trust you have. And it's not the candidate. The candidate is just the vehicle for the policy. So I'm not voting on, oh, he's nice and he talks. Yes, he's saying this is the vehicle for the policy we want. It's the same strategy that Kshama Sawant uses. She builds her campaigns around the policy demand. So one of the election she did, the policy demand was the $15 minimum wage thing. So that's how you build a coalition. That's not red or blue. Because if you're a candidate and you come out and say, I'm not red or blue, I'm for the worker. And if you want to join me, red or blue, if your past history is red or blue and you want to join me because you want $15 minimum wage, let's go. You know how many partisans who are not going to participate? Like, it's a very few. The majority of people, workers, are not partisans, and they're going to go, I need $15 a minimum wage or $25 minimum wage to feed my family and my kids. Fuck Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Let's go get this money together. That's how it's going to happen. Go ahead.
You're on the money, CJ. We We can let it play.
Back to the
That's
video.
perfect. That's on the money.
Change. This is an effective strategy that the inside game, once again, I cannot stress enough, abandoned. So I was all for these progressives that are willing to challenge the Democratic Party establishment if they was willing to work with this outside mutual aid game. They are not. They ain't showing to Rome store for the poor. They're not helping us feed the homeless. They're not showing up to anti-war rallies. So if you don't want to join us, fine. We do our own stuff. We need to build our own movement. It's not going to happen with the 2-year election cycle they brainwashed us to focus on. To focus on 2 years. And my last point I want to make, they will call us a nihilist because we don't believe in supporting this failed strategy of supporting the Democratic Party. Bree, what is the biggest nihilists are the people who lose an election. And then they say, oh, woe is me. We're screwed. Donald Trump won. We're all going to die. That's the biggest nihilist. Exactly. When Trump won, I'm like, okay, let's organize. Joe Biden won, let's organize. Because that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's why I always look down at people that have tons of rainbow.
I am torn a little bit about this because I do.
Can you explain that point when you say you look down upon?
I'll be real quick. I don't want to rant again. But
yeah, go ahead.
You guys understand? People never understand why they had Trump the rainbow syndrome. I understood that Trump was just a very average member of the ruling class. If you look at the body of work between Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama, I know Donald Trump is crazy, but it's just a fact that Donald Trump was just the average U.S. president. So the nihilists are the people like, oh my God, our society we're lost, it's over. Trump won, we're doomed. To me, when Trump won, I'm like, bro, this is another psychopath that we gotta deal with. Let's organize. Soon as Bernie lost, let's organize. Soon as Bernie pulled out, you're like, oh my God, I guess I gotta join the Democratic Party. We lost. The movement is over. I guess we gotta take the crumbs the Democrats gave us. They are the biggest nihilists. Meanwhile, as soon as Bernie left, I was like, all right, I fucked up. I joined the Bernie campaign. I thought that was a good idea. Let me get back to the drawing board because I have no other choice. I tried this strategy. Let me think of something else. And that leads to the ideology that you guys are hearing today. Me trying something that failed and me saying, all right, let's get back to work. That is like opposite of a nihilist.
Right.
The nihilists are the people who said they want to wage a political revolution, then lost an electoral popularity contest, and then fucking yielded. And now they fucking bootlickers of the same party they said they want to wage a revolution with.
Right.
Those are the biggest nihilists.
Yeah, nihilists are like.
I'm done. I keep ranting. Go ahead.
It just doesn't make any sense that how you don't perceive yourself as a nihilist when literally you're trying to join a party that doesn't want you and building up barriers, aka dark money, to stop you. But you're saying I'm going to keep going. How is that not nihilism to you? I don't understand. Isn't that you just saying I give up? Like I give up because I'm just going to go join this imperialist party. Isn't that just giving up? Aren't you giving up on not having to pick between the lesser of two evils by joining the Democrats? You're giving up. Let's continue. But you get the point.
I do want to say that I respect enormously what folks like David Sirota have done in this space, because but for a lot of their research and knowledge of how things actually work procedurally on the Hill, I, for one, would not have had the ability to advocate for things like force the vote and to understand how the voting mechanisms work to be able to make the case that Kevin McCarthy was never going to be Speaker of the House. And, all of the machinations around the fight for 15 and things like that. And I do think that part of the issue is that there is such a paucity of kind of leaders and people who want to assume that particular mantle that we want, and perhaps people have the responsibility to take that up because they're knowledgeable in this space, like David Sirota. And then when people like him don't necessarily want to or aren't on the front edge of advocating for one strategy or approach or another.
So this is misleading because he is on the front lines for advocating for one strategy. This is just completely not true. And she's repeating what he has said. I don't care about any, I'm agnostic when it comes to strategy. So that's a whole nother conversation, because if you're agnostic about strategy, that means you're agnostic about what the policies, because you're saying, I don't care what the strategy is. Like, I don't care what the strategy is. That means you don't care if you actually get it, because the strategy is what's going to get you to get that. But this is just simply not true. Like, he completely advocates for one strategy And I'm going to play the video in just a few minutes here after she speaks a little more. I'm going to play the video that I have with the interview that he did with Michael Moore, where he literally says that progressive taking over the Democratic Party is not the side dish, it's the main course. That's what he says. So any words, Nick, or I can get back to the video.
You can keep it going.
Yeah.
It can feel disappointing and sometimes even slip over into kind of a tacit or implicit covering for the way that things have always been and these ineffective strategies. So I understand the frustration there, but at the same time, I also don't know where I would be in this space without people who just had the basic know-how. And I think the problem is that sometimes like people are in their roles and they're good in their roles, but there's this push for people to be in roles that they kind of don't belong in because there's no one there. I should say there are very few people, credible people at least, who are willing to fill that space.
Can I speak to that point? And what you said is exactly 100%. I agree. And the space that David Sirota belongs in is writing, to the point that you're speaking to. He writes beautifully. He uncovers things that we don't know about the Democratic. So I do believe the value of David Sirota has been widely overblown. Widely overblown. Like in the way that she describes it as, I don't know if I could have done my job without. Give me a fucking break. There's there's thousands of reporters who we knew so basically what that thinking is, we only knew that the Democratic Party was this terrible since he's been reporting it. When we can pull up Margaret Kimberly, we can pull up Jamu Baraka, when they've been talking about this shit literally for decades, and then the ones who they took the mantle from. So this is not. So where did they get their sourcing about the Democratic Party being terrible before David Sirota? My point. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So let me finish this point about David Sirota, and I think we're gonna probably close this and let everybody
we can
watch this on her thing.
Because I want to make sure people go to Bree Channel too, and make sure because I do appreciate her honestly just platforming us and on the Hill and this too. Like I'm to be honest, I am very appreciative of it. I'm not gonna lie. So make sure you guys show support to Bree because she helping RBN out. So and we are shut down. We talk about this all the time. The algorithm has destroyed us, and there's no doubt in my mind. You guys say I'm arrogant, but we was on the old school Kyle Kalinske TYT algorithm. We would easily be at 100,000 subscribers easily.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm arrogant for saying that, but to me, there's no doubt. But the algorithm crushes so much. The only way we get people to see our show is when people like Jimmy or Bree bring us on. Then people are like, oh, I saw you on Jimmy. I saw you on Bree. Like people never just find our stuff. So it does mean a lot. So we'll make sure you guys leave a like on our YouTube if you can't subscribe to her. Like do whatever you can to show support to Bree because we appreciate her helping our channel out. So go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, so we're not gonna watch the whole thing. I mean, we watched it together with most of you over when it was playing on her channel. But we do want to allow to see most of it or the rest of it on her channel after this last point about David Sirota, because I think it's an important point. Democratic Party, like the details, not just a headline. That's great. The problem is when people like him and Marianne Williamson get into the space where now they're trying to sheep herd the working class. Now you're in our backyard. Just imagine this. Imagine you're at home. Because this is how I see it. You're at home, I'm in my hood, I'm in Compton, and then there's a person driving through your city telling people in your city lies. That's what's happening by you telling people to vote for the Democratic Party.
Well, let me ask you this, CJ, because this was a issue that came up. Let's speak in specifics because I really have no problem with criticizing anybody, but I would prefer to do it to their face because these are all people who come in and out, and I want them to have an opportunity to.
David Sirota blocked this, and he refuses to come on. He's a weak person, and no one should be listening to David Sirota. And I double down on that. No one should be listening to David Sirota. The value his articles brings does not amount to what the damage he brings by promoting the Democratic Party. It doesn't. It's a net negative. It's a net negative. his reporting. Because what value, like you bring up the point, what value is it reporting if he tells you to go and vote for them? What value is it of me if I tell you that I'm a vegan? If 2 minutes later you see me in the alley eating 3 Big Macs, what value does that have? It has no value whatsoever. If you're telling me to go vote for the very people you're reporting about, it's terrible. That is such. Go ahead.
And I add to the point. I'll make it really quick, and I'll get back to the vehicle. You're gonna hear me make it when I chime in. Even if his writings are good, okay. David Schroeder is making a lot of money with his writing. So as far as what I see, when people make a lot of money with their writing, pointing out the problem, but then they tell people to support this instrument in that problem, that shows that you're attached and you want to talk about these issues to make money, but you're not really serious about the solution. And I'm saying, I know that sounds harsh, but I'm telling you, this is the perspective I see it. When I see people who write good and say good stuff, but then at the end of the day, they say, "Oh, we can't have third party." To me, that's not okay. You're just making money writing about our trauma. That I know that sounds hard, but that's literally just how I see it. Go ahead.
But how can you be left if you even advocate for the Democratic Party? And I'm not talking about I think fascism, and I'm not promoting them, but I'm literally picking. But if you're advocating, saying this is the best strategy, and I can play the video in just a moment here, this is the best strategy. Like, that's where the problem for me. If you just say, hey, Democrats is terrible, I see that this is a zero-sum game, I'm voting harm reduction, I'm not telling nobody to vote for the Democrats, but I'm going to go ahead and vote for them. If you said that, I'll be like, okay. But once you're trying to say that this is what the left should be doing to get the gains that we want, that is just something we can't get on board with. And and at least I'm going to attack at every moment I get. But let's finish the point so we can move on, Nick. Let's finish this point here.
Well, CJ, I know that you don't believe that to be true because,
I do believe that to be true, Bree. This is a point that we have a very large disagreement. It's David Sirota.
Well, but CJ, to this point, I was just on your show, and in the context of your own stream,
So I was talking, so they cut to her here, and this is a reason why the sound is recorded separately too, because he can cut the sound out. Otherwise, if it's one sound, it's her talking and me talking at the same time.
You brought up at least one, perhaps more, David Sirota article, right, from The Lever. And so to say something like David Sirota isn't valuable in the space, or I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but whatever it was that you just said, I've forgotten now. I think that's just obviously untrue. And I think that we can keep the critique legitimate and narrow. I'm sorry.
I said I acknowledge that his space is in what I said, and that was intentional. In the stream, I like to use. She thought she was pulling up. She thought she was pulling a got you, not like in a bad way, but this was clearly she thought she had a got you on me when she was like, "Oh, you use David Sirota too, so you obviously." No, I was using his particular. I don't read his articles. That was the first time I ever read his article, but I read it so that I can use your own words. And I think it was about something that had to do with progressive Democrat strategy in that realm, and that's the reason why I used what he was saying. It wasn't like I was using it because it was needed information. I don't use The Lever. I don't use liberal outfits as sources for my own information, but I will use a liberal outfit to challenge liberal thoughts and liberal thinking. So that's what she thought. And I said, and I explained to her that was intentional. I'm critiquing the progressive strategy. I'm going to use your own words. So that was intentional to use The Lever in that stream that you saw. But the point is, he writes beautifully, and I'm acknowledging that. You uncovering the Democratic Party is a great thing. You critiquing the Democratic Party is a great thing. There's never a critique from RBN about that space. It's when you cross over and now you're trying to tell people to go vote for the Democratic Party. Now, if you're on the left, now if you're a liberal, that's what liberals are supposed to do. But if you're trying to say you're in the space in the left, and I'm going to end it here. This is a great point, and I'll end it there. If he was a liberal and saying I'm a liberal, like Kamala Harris, I don't go after Kamala Harris and saying none of this stuff. But if you're saying you're a leftist and you make fun of liberals, like I see him talk about liberals like they're not real, like if you're in this space and then you're telling people who are leftists to go vote for people like this, like we just can't do that anymore. And I think we're gonna close it there, Nick.
Yeah, make sure you guys check out the rest of it on the Bad Faith YouTube channel, and make sure you guys catch the end of it on Bad Faith Patreon. Make sure you guys show support to Bree and us on the show. Give a big pop of support. Getting people like, if people see a big support on Bree podcast, they're like, damn, Bree got a lot of numbers on that RBN podcast. Maybe I need to get them RBN numbers on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we gotta be strategic, guys. Like, if you guys want to see us grow. Like,
I was already thinking that.
The Hill Rising video went viral on Twitter. And then YouTube, it did pretty well for them. So that's the part we want to see, so people will have us on our channel. So
right. So go watch Bree's content, please. If you're watching this on replay, just for the views, just go watch it 5 minutes so she get the views, because we need our voices. We need RBN to be platformed more in the spaces that we're trying to shake up. I guess you can describe it that way. So yeah, go there. I'm not saying, it's nothing to troll about, so there's no need to troll, but go there, give your honest opinion. Yeah, it's nothing to troll about. So I don't even want to say that, but it's nothing to troll about. Like we were just speaking about this strategy. But yeah, I think it was a great conversation, and it's much props to Bree. I think I do the most pushback out of all the members, but she understands it's not at all coming from a place like I personally. I just have a passionate opinion about strategies that's not helping us. Like I have a passionate opinion about just like not doing something that's going to execute what I want. But Nick, did you want to do that other story? You wanted to close out?
Yeah, so I can do one more story. The Italian,
yeah, let's do that.
The Italian Prime Minister story, not that long. I just want to cut this to maybe a 10 to 15 minute segment later. So let's do that one. So I'm pretty much explain what I said earlier, because I know a lot of you guys probably join the stream later, right? So Italy has a new prime minister, and the coverage on her has been interesting. I've been trying to look up what her policies is, and it's always interesting. Like you're looking at the CNN outlets, the MSNBCs, the neoliberals, and the progressives too, because they sound just like them now. If you look at the breaking points, the TYT, it sounds just like them. So they say the Italian prime minister is a fascist, and then you have the right, the Tucker Carlsons, the people on Fox News are like, "Oh, this is great. She's a populist." So what is RBN's verdict on Italy's new prime minister? Well, she's a neoliberal. She's just another standard neoliberal. Now, I know people will say she's a fascist because she's part of this far-right party and she praised Mussolini, right? But our presidents and our politicians praise the founding fathers. Our politicians praise literally Ronald Reagan. Nancy Pelosi praises Ronald. Like these people praise the worst people in human history. So I'm not giving her a pass for praising Mussolini. I'm telling you, this is what average neoliberals do. They praise people they consider strong leaders in their culture and society. That is not a reflection of their politics. So they're a far-right party, but they are just neoliberals. Now, if you want to make the argument that neoliberalism enables fascism, that neoliberalism leads down the road to fascism, you're not going to get any pushback from me. But I'm going to show you guys why she's not.
Let me jump in here before you show something, because that's actually my point. So that's my perspective, is that call her fascist, like calling her it's not really that big of a deal whether you call her fascist or neoliberal. To me, it's like calling, you know what I mean? You're just saying neoliberal versus fascist. One is just the infancy of the other. You get what I'm saying? It's one's going to lead to the other. So I don't see it as like these worlds of parts a difference. I just see one at a shorter at a beginning stage than the other. Yeah,
I found this story very interesting and wanted to cover it here because I see both sides getting it wrong. And there are people, because of the COVID culture war, broke a lot of people's brain. They give people way too much credit for getting this easy to get right issue, right? So then they take people who was against mandates, and then they'll say, "Oh, they're populists." Ron DeSantis was against mandates, so now these Wall Street capitalist bootlickers are populists all of a sudden. So yes, the Italy prime minister spoke out against the mandates and a lot of the neoliberal COVID policies. But so many people think doing that alone makes someone a friend of the workers, and that has been some of the biggest brain rot I have seen in political discourse. Just because some Republicans got this issue, the COVID issue right, just because this Italian prime minister got this issue right, does not make them a populist. I remember Marty Taylor Greene, one of the people that got the mandates issue right. She was saying, "Oh my God." People like she's a populist because she calling that out. She calling the Ukraine war out. Then they had a referendum that gave money to give baby formula to the kids that she was pretending that she cared about, and then she voted no. These people constantly voting against pro-worker policies. So if you think this person is a populist just because she got the very easy to get right mandate issue, explain this. This is neoliberal governance, and I always troll MAGA and conservative people, because like, you guys think you're a populist? You think you're an edgy conservative? You are just a neoliberal. If you guys think I'm being exaggerating, look up the definition. This is a Marxist channel. At least I'm a Marxist. I'm gonna say that. We explain shit differently than what you guys are used to in the mainstream. Neoliberalism is as defined as people who support laissez-faire economics, free market capitalism, and a strong national security state. Strong militaries, strong police budgets. This represents the Republican and the Democratic Party. So both parties are neoliberal, and based on everything I've seen from Giorgia Meloni, she's a neoliberal too. New Italian Prime Minister Meloni's first action is to withdraw 500 subsidy for Italy's poorest people, a lifeline for millions. So more Reaganomics.
That's what I was speaking to earlier. That was her first thing, was to take away something for the poor, for the working class. It's just disgusting. But that speaks to the neoliberal part of her that you're talking about. But let me read a snippet, Nick, from the World Socialist website. They also did a couple of articles on her. One is Mussolini's heir to return to power, and they're not necessarily talking about her. They're talking about the party. But she is the head of the party, so that's where they're getting this from. So, but let's listen. 77 years after fascist dictator Benito Mussolini was shot by partisans as he tried to flee to Switzerland, Mussolini's political heirs are back in power in Italy for the first time since the end of World War II. It is a historical milestone in Europe's bourgeoisie legitimation of fascism. It is a historic milestone in Europe's bourgeoisie legitimation of fascism. It's just basically saying the road to fascism.
Can I explain something, CJ?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be real quick. I want you to continue the article. And everything they said about Italy and her, I'm saying is probably correct. But now let me decolonize your mind and translate that to how that appeals to our country. They talk about the ties that she has to Mussolini and the fascist party. There are ties that Hillary Clinton had to Barry Goldwater. So you guys understand what I'm saying here? She literally started with Barry Goldwater. She literally says that she had war criminals as her mentor. Why don't blame on the fucking the old ass motherfucker that ain't died yet? Henry Kissinger.
Kissinger, yeah.
Hillary Clinton said Henry Kissinger was my mentor, and she came from Barry. So imagine if once again, I'm not pushing back on the article substance.
Not at all. You're adding.
If someone wrote a story about America where you had Hillary Clinton as the presidential candidate, and they're like, "Oh my God, America descends into fascism because someone who had ties to Barry Goldwater is now the presidential candidate. Someone who was a mentor, someone who had a mentor here." You guys see where I'm going with this? That's the same thing they're doing to her. And I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that is not the gauge you use to say.
Like there has to be deeds. There has to be deeds. There has to be actions. There has to be. That's what you're saying. Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. You're saying there has to be more concrete actions, like these ideologies, have to be like something done,
We
not
want
just
people to
kind
be
of
serious.
pontificate on
That's
it.
all we
Yeah, not
ask
just
you.
time.
Please be serious.
Yeah.
This is about-
So let's listen. Or let me read a little more. In Sunday's election, the Brothers of Italy, FDI, received the largest single vote of any party with 26%, as the Social Democratic Party collapsed to 19%. So we have to first understand this wasn't like some large mandate. She had 26%. Okay, it wasn't like this was some large mandate. But I want to not let's focus on her, and I want to talk about the Brothers of Italy here, because there's another story. There's another story that's also, it's the same day, and it talks more here, and I think this more delves into why. Now there's people that you see, Nick, in the red and blue game that's loosely using this fascism the wrong way. They're using fascism and populism. You see the discussion. So let's read this and see how they're making the connection. So neo-fascist Giorgia Melani's Brothers of Italy win. So this is more about Brothers of Italy. This is the sort of the neo-fascist, and since she's part of it, and that's where they're giving her this name, which to me, like neoliberal is just as, it's not just as bad, but it's terrible too.
Pushback, because I am not here to, I hate all politicians. I'm not here to defend her. My only pushback, go scroll up a little bit to the headline, right? Scroll to the headline. I would have no problem with that headline if you call Joe Biden a neo-fascist.
That's what I was just trying to get to.
If you're someone writing this headline, and I've seen so many CNN headlines, so many liberals, so many people who vote for Joe Biden are like, look at this fascist in Italy. They're like, nigga, do you know who you voted for? Joe Biden's body count made all these fascists, put all these fascists to shame. His authoritarianism, putting 100,000 more cops on the street in the middle of a pandemic. He literally created the Patriot Act. He waged a historic war against reporters in the First Amendment. Who the fuck is a fascist if not Joe Biden? That is the question we demand to hear. Go ahead, CJ.
I think I like the way like you're sort of framing it, because it gets to the point that maybe this hasn't been in any discussion I've seen. Who is saying she's a fascist? Because we have a chorus of people saying it, but they're all coming from three different camps. One of the camps is liberals. They're trying to point to her because she didn't like the COVID policy. So she's a fascist because of the COVID policy, and that's why they're on it. And then you have people more like socialists who have more of a substantive critique and don't necessarily call her a fascist, but maybe a neo-fascist or a proto-fascist because of her party affiliation, not because they view this website calls Joe Biden a fascist. So that's the point I'm getting to, is that if she is a fascist, that makes Joe Biden a fascist too. And I think he is. Yeah. At least he is the beginning of it. So if and I'm to your point, Nick, you're saying, yeah, you're using fascist for her, but Joe Biden does the same exact thing and you don't do that. And I'm saying both of them could deserve this proto-fascist or fascist or neo-fascist sort of label. So I completely agree.
Argument, right? Because I think CJ, I think you get it, because I'm saying we can do it either way. I can explain my logic either way. Whether you agree that she's a fascist, okay, if you agree that she's a fascist, then you must agree that Biden's a fascist.
Right.
If you don't think she's a fascist, then okay, I guess then at least you're consistent on that. But I see people who support Biden, who support the Democrat apparatus, who then call her and other people fascists. That's inconsistent. I don't understand.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you have to understand who is saying it, because it's literally different camps using the same word, but they meaning something completely different. Like, the way they're using neo-fascists in this article has more to do with the party that Mussolini used to be a part of, not necessarily any like policy she has said. That's more of what. But then you have the liberals who just want to win in this red-blue game and say, she's a fascist, she's against COVID, that's a fascist, but Joe Biden is somehow different. It just to me, both of them are fascists, or both of them are right at that cusp of being a fascist. And let me say it this way, it's a better way. If they didn't have people fighting against it, I think they would take their fascist behaviors and implement them. But we have a lot of people fighting against those prospects. But let me read, Nick, just a little bit. Yeah, let me just read a little bit of this. Milani of the Brothers of Italy party, the political successor to the fascist party of World War II. So they're the political successor, this Brothers of Italy. Era dictator Benito Mussolini won last night's election. And then it just kind of goes into the detail. But let me read. Where's that part at? Where's that part? Oh, here it goes. The return of Mussolini's descendants to direct rule over Italy for the first time since the end of World War II, 77 years ago, is a warning to workers worldwide. So for me, Nick, like if you're get technical, yeah, she may not be technically a fascist because she hasn't executed some of the things that would make her a fascist, but like what this article is saying here, if workers don't wake up, like this is a warning. It could go there, is what I'm saying. Yeah. It could go there if workers don't wake up, and that's here too. I'm not just saying over in Italy. I'm talking about for sure. Where this is a worldwide thing I'm talking about. If workers don't wake up, it will go down this route, and neoliberalism is right at the cusp, Nick. You seeing it in them locking down censorship in the United States. You're seeing the beginnings, like the sprouting of from the root. Go ahead, Nick, if you're gonna.
Another point. I'll let you finish your point. Neoliberalism enables fascism. Also, liberalism and neoliberalism will never be the answer to fascism.
Right.
So why is Italy got fascist? Why did we elect Donald Trump? Is that undeniable fact that liberals can't admit, because if you admit that, that debunks your entire ideology. So what do they say? Oh, it's the deplorables. Oh, it's we don't have no idea why people are so radicalized. Why are people voting for Donald Trump? Because neoliberalism enables that. Capitalism enables that. Poverty breeds extremism. When people go through hardship, they develop more extremist ideology. That will allow tyrants and demagogues to take advantage of that to gain political power. This is a very basic political concept that all Marxists understand that liberals cannot reconcile with. That's why liberals are weak fighting fascism, because they uphold the same system that fascists exploit. Just to get a little nerdy with you guys.
Right.
Do you have anything else, CJ? Go ahead.
But I was just gonna say, and I think I'm not gonna quote him, but this can be considered like the petty bourgeoisie. Is a lot of overlapping in there. So if they're not part of the ruling class, the petty bourgeoisie sort of pay some of the same roles because they're like the lower class in the bourgeoisie class that is allowed to kind of be the go-between. But go ahead, Nick. I don't want to get
so last thing I want to share, because I'm calling her neoliberal. I'm glad that you had your input as well, because I'm gonna continue with that argument. We showed the austerity politics that she engaged in punishing the poor because they're poor handling of central planning. That's what austerity is. We try to reprogram what you guys think what these things are. Like, whenever you see austerity implemented, that's them punishing you because their central planning model sucks. Isn't that fucked up? Reaganism a bitch, isn't it? So that we already exposed how she did that, and now there are a lot of people that call her populist. And I remember when I first saw that, and I saw a few people say she was a populist. I'm like, my first thing I looked up. You want to know the first thing I looked up? Where did she stay on NATO? Because I was like, all right, what is that about? But then I found that she's pro-NATO. What? Not only that, she's literally simping for Zelensky on Twitter. And I'm not joking. Then Melania and Zelensky exchanging nicety on Twitter. I don't know what Zelensky says. Who cares? Fuck that fascist. But fascists, apparently, they hold hands. They lock together. They find each other. She said, man, I heard Zelensky's up to some fascism. Let me see what's up. Let me see what's up. Let me see what's up. I heard you about that fascism, bro. But she's like, man, the way you crush workers' rights right now, woo, that was some real baller moves, bro. That's how they talk behind the scene, by the way. There's a tweet. Dear Zelensky, you know that you can count on our loyal support for the cause of freedom for the Ukrainian people. Stay strong and keep your faith steadfast. This is a neoliberal. So guys, she's a NATO member. So think about what this means. You got a ton of liberals calling her a fascist, but she's a strong NATO member. What does that tell you? So that's why they all smeared her.
Are fascists part of NATO? Squad members, are they part of NATO now? It's so ridiculous, Nick.
And this is a basic Marxist principle. Anyone who allied with fascists is a fascist.
Fascist.
That's why liberals been melting down at this election victory. That's the real reason, because it makes them look bad, because it exposes exactly what we've been saying about them. This is the people who support Ukraine, guys. The fascists.
It's kind of like the same reason they don't like Donald Trump, because he doesn't have different policies. It's just that he puts on a bad face for imperialism. He puts on a bad face for that. I do have a short clip to play, and it's Michael Parenti talking about fake revolution, because I want to speak to the point of how these people are. Yeah, I want because you're talking about people. Oh, I didn't see. I wasn't even looking at the screen. If you had,
never mind. You're talking about
people. You're talking about people calling her a populist.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's very important to understand right populism and how to recognize it as really just fascism, because a lot of people don't understand the Nazi Party was supposed to be a left party. That was the whole concept, but it was a fascist party. So you'll hear a lot of like revolutionary talk. Michael Parenti explains it here.
In point of fact, these bozos are really just staging what Michael Parenti refers to as a false revolution.
Both the Italian fascists and the Nazis made a conscious effort at imitating the left. Youth organizations, mass mobilizations, rallies, parades, banners, symbols, slogans, uniforms. Fascism, in fact, is a false revolution. It makes a revolutionary appeal without making an actual revolution. It propagates the widely proclaimed new order while serving the same old moneyed interests.
In Black Shirts and Reds, Parenti points out that fascists have always co-opted popular leftist messaging and aesthetics to present themselves as heroes of the people, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. MAGA communism and American patriot socialism are just feeble attempts to hide a brown shirt beneath a red cape, following in the footsteps of the great monsters of history.
Now, like with a lot of terms like liberalism, democracy, socialism, communism, no single definition of fascism maybe will satisfy everybody. And with fascism, there's a really special problem, because it's a beguiling mix of revolutionary-sounding mass appeals and reactionary class politics. And the reactionary class politics are the part of fascism that our establishment historians almost never talk about. Hitler's party, for instance, was called the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the NSDAP, or Nazis. It's a very left-sounding name, National Socialist German Workers, and it was designed to win broad support among working people, even while the Nazis were destroying working-class organizations. In other words, fascism, the original Italian and German variations of fascism, was a political phenomenon that made a revolutionary appeal without making a revolution. It promised to solve the ills of the many while in fact protecting the special interests of the few with violence and terror. And it propagated a new political consciousness, a new order, a new nation to serve the same old capitalist system.
In point
of and that is such a great point in explaining this part, and that is, we're at a point, like what you were saying, we're in late stage capitalism where people are such being bogged down by the system and trying just to survive, that when this right populist demagogue come in, Nick, this is what I'm afraid of, what he speaks about, a false revolution. They're going to be speaking all these things when they're really just serving the same capitalist powers. So I wanted to make sure we brought this up when we're talking about anything time we're bringing up like fascism and populism. Go ahead.
Yeah, one last thing we can wrap the segment, because one thing I want to bring up, and I think about 20 minutes segment, that's pretty good. Ben Norton brings up another important fact. You see how I'm glad you played that because fascists pretend they're populist, pretend they support a populist message, but at the end of the day, they still class loyal to the capitalist class. So this is the person people call a populist, and this is the same to Tucker Carlson and all these right-wing frauds that people think are populist. You're not populist if you're supporting the capitalist imperialist agenda against China. If you're a pro-worker, that means being pro-worker for the global working class. How can you say you're a populist if you are for imposing capitalist hegemonic dominance on the world, even to the point of reducing the quality of life for the global working class? So these people that pretend they're pro-worker, but they demonize China all the time, like every single right-wing populist do, every single one. Everyone. You had Maloney, who was very anti-China, and then she pledged to leave the Belt and Road Initiative. But she loved NATO and Zelensky. Once again, this is neoliberal Nancy Pelosi shit, guys. If you want to call it fascism, that's fine. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to defend her. But populist? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
I got my eyes all over the political spectrum.
I haven't seen that, Nick. I got to be honest with you. I haven't seen that, but I know you are in a lot more spaces than I am. And I just haven't. That is just moronic to me that you think she's
because of COVID, CJ. I think people say, "Oh, she was fighting against the COVID mandates," so the neoliberal establishment is lying about her and calling her a fascist. I'm like, guys, can we? That may be true, but can we use our critical thinking skills? Just because she agreed on one fucking thing,
right?
COVID mandates, people like, oh, she must be for the workers. That's the same thing with Tucker Carlson. That's the same thing with Ron DeSantis. They got one issue right in their entire life.
They be like, oh, he's Hugo Chavez now, huh? He's Hugo Chavez now, right? Got one issue right that is so easily to get right, but now they're Hugo Chavez to them, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to wrap the segment. CJ, we got coming up. I got right.
Yeah, I gotta go too. As far as for me, I think we're gonna try to do this segment. We're gonna try to do this stream tomorrow so we can, cover the Jamal Bowman stuff and all those other stories we wanted to do. But that's all I got coming up. Friday end of the week. I work mostly on the weekend, so that's what I'm gonna be doing is working. But we have our summit coming up, Nick. We got to start planning. We got to start narrowing down because October is on Saturday. We got to start narrowing down who is what and segments. And so we got to get back into summit mode. The second annual general strike is coming up October 23rd, 22nd, and 23rd. The subtitle is Activist Summit, but it is our second annual general strike summit. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, stay tuned for that. That is coming up.
So I'm planning to do a Saturday show just because I got a lot of shit I want to talk about. And Dan Cohen, we should have a good show. I don't know if you join. I think you join tomorrow, but we're gonna have a good show because we got a lot of stuff we gotta talk about. Plus, Dan Cohen is gonna join us because shit is crazy in Haiti right now. I'm still doing my research so I can do a great job presenting that for you guys. But Dan Cohen will be great to have on because he just wrote a piece talking about Haiti. He's from Mid-Press News. He made Killing Gaza, so love the work that Dan Cohen do in terms of anti-imperialism. So he's gonna be our guest tomorrow, plus all the topics that we didn't get to today. The Bad Faith episode dropped today, so we had to talk about that. So
yeah, we had to, and it was a contingency. I told Nick, I said, this is the thing. But if she drops the shit, the graphic already made, we'll just pivot. But like the stream on your way out, join our Substack on your way out, and we jumped up in subscribers. It's even higher than that. I think it's 51 the last time I checked, so we gained like 20 subscribers just during the stream, Nick. So that is always great. I think we're gonna be out of here, Nick. I'm gonna play this last video, so if you want to check out, you can. This is Marcus Garvey. The same intro video.
Are we going on Bree's call-in show? Do you know?
We have to reach out to her. I was thinking of that too, because she said she wanted us to come on. But this was last week when we had the conversation, so we just have to double check.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm busy as hell, but we see.
All right, I can jump on if we need to. I can jump on. So
yeah, all right. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right, everybody. This is the Marcus Garvey video content to close us out, and have a great rest of your day.
A man named George Tyler who put a lot of money into Garvey's hand. He was a former investor. One day, he came to see Garvey at one of the UNIA offices. George Tyler stepped in and started shooting. So as he's in there bussing, Amy Ashwood, who was only Garvey's girlfriend at the time before he married her, jumped in front of the shooter to protect Garvey and tackled him down a flight of stairs. Garvey was hit 3 times. The next day, Garvey still went to his lecture and spoke in Philadelphia, all bandaged up and everything. The UNIA was growing at an alarming rate, and the Back to Africa movement was huge. Garvey was big time. There were over 500 chapters of the UNIA. And now here comes J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover sent all types of agents to infiltrate the UNIA.
Hoover's agents were in the audience at Carnegie Hall when Garvey bragged that the UNIA would soon be strong enough to exact its own form of justice.
When those crackers lynch a Negro below the Mason-Dixon line, since it is not safe to lynch a white man in any part of America, we shall press the button and lynch him in Africa.
The agent reported that Garvey's address was met with great applause and much excitement.
Garvey felt like black folks needed their own ships. There was the White Star Line, the Irish had the Green Star Line, so Garvey created the Black Star Line. Not only just to help with transportation, but to also sell goods. The SS Yarmouth was the first ship purchased, and Garvey renamed the ship the Frederick Douglass.